The throne of the Mechas. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 576 Recruitment. The Major General Kirilenko that Chief of Staff Shevchuk mentioned is an A-class mecha master and the chief instructor and commander of all mecha units of the Second Fleet of the Galactic Empire. This person has a perverse and violent personality and a very bad temper. However, even if he is rejected, when he visits him, he dare not get angry. He is as obedient as a bunny in front of Popovich, an S-class mecha master. Chief of Staff Shevchuk continued, these three people are still staying at home as usual. A few days ago, Popovich posted a bounty task on the local area network, recruiting someone who can solve his mecha failure. The reward is a favor from Dr. He Yunlin, who can help him treat a patient. Now it seems that someone should have solved this problem, and those people have not come out of Popovich's house. And Popovich sent the weapon alloy double ring of the mecha to the parts production base of Northern Heavy Industries and Terminal 4E production. Admiral Vatis stood up and looked at the space outside the window for a long time without saying a word. After a long while, he turned his head and said, Mr. Chief of Staff, please prepare a high-speed mecha cruiser for me. I will go to Novikavo in person to express my sincerity. Oh, tell Major General Kirilenko to go with me. We don't have much time. We must hurry up with these tasks. For these special talents, they can treat them as they like. In addition, we must not use force or coerce these special talents. It will be more trouble than gain if we force them to the opposite side of us. Take the three old guys on Novikavo for example. If you had used force on them at that time, you would not be standing here today. Yes, General. The Chief of Staff was sweating. Northern Empire Baikal Administrative Region, Tunguska. It is adjacent to the Siberian Starfield and is a famous nature reserve and resort. Most of the planet is ocean and tropical rainforest, and the scenery is picturesque. This planet is crowded with tourists every year. However, on the equator of such a planet, there is a large island with an area of more than 8 million square kilometers, which is slightly larger than Australia on Earth. However, this planet is a forbidden zone for humans. This is because the island is occupied by thousands of snakes. The name of this island is Hell Island, which means Hell Island. Most of the snakes on Hell Island are venomous snakes, and those non-venomous snakes are also huge and extremely ferocious. What's more terrifying is that there are several highly venomous sea snakes and several amphibious snakes living in the waters around this island. The density of snakes on the island is very high, with one snake entrenched there for every 2 to 3 square meters. Fortunately, this island has dense vegetation, abundant rainfall, and is located between two continents, so billions of migratory birds migrate to this island every year to rest and forage. The migratory birds on Hell Island migrate all year round, and they provide a lot of meat for the snakes on the island. In addition, there is a kind of extremely strong breeding rat underground on the island. The reproduction rate of this rat is twice as high as that of rats on Earth. They are also an important food source for snakes. In addition, a large number of fish and shellfish in the waters around Hell Island are also the main food sources for sea snakes. In addition, many snakes themselves feed on their own kind. There is an airport on Hell Island. There are several buildings around the airport. They used to belong to scientific research institutions, but they have all been abandoned. It is too dangerous here. If the scientific research personnel are not careful, they will be killed by the omnipresent venomous snakes. So no one has set foot on Hell Island for decades, and the government of Tunguska Star does not allow anyone to approach this place. But what people don't know is that under these abandoned buildings, a huge underground space has been dug out, and a secret base has been built. And this is the base and secret research center of the chosen organization in the Baikal Administrative District. At this time, there are several people in the conference room of the center. These people are both men and women, and each of them has a different body shape. The only thing in common is that the pupils of everyone's eyes are vertical slits, without any emotions. Sitting in the main seat is a young man with orange-yellow patterns on his face. He looks only in his 20s. It is impossible to tell what race he is, but the aura he exudes is not like that of a human. This person is the person in charge of the chosen organization in the Bakel Star region and the leader of a faction within the chosen organization. As long as there are more than 4 people in an organization, there will be factions, and the chosen is no exception. After all, resources are limited. Only by forming gangs and factions can we gain more benefits. Their faction is called the Snake Division in the chosen organization. The leader of the Snake Division is this young man, and his name, or code name, is Snake. Not all people in the Snake Division are genetically modified snakes, but the 7 strongest people in the Snake Division, who are also the 7 leaders of the Snake Division, are genetically modified snakes. The leader of the Snake Division is the snake. The second person under the snake is a giant man who is nearly 3 meters tall and full of muscles. This person's skin is actually green, and the snake scales on it are faintly visible. This person is the second in command of the Snake Division, Python. The third and fourth in command are a pair of twin brothers, named Viper and Viper respectively. The combined combat power of these 2 people is very strong, and they are good at using venom. The fifth in command of the Snake Division is a black woman. Her name is Mamba. This woman loves to kill for fun, and is extremely cruel. The 6th leader of the snake department was the snake that was trampled into a snake paste by Carlos using the Revenge Knight mecha on Mallets, and the 7th leader was the anaconda that was killed by Xia Xingchen and others on Gemini. At this time, the conference room was silent, but this silent room was full of murderous intent. At this time, the atmosphere in the conference room was solemn and depressing. No one dared to speak. Finally, the snake spoke, and his voice made a hissing sound like a gas leak. Mamba, you are in charge of intelligence. Now both the groups of Z and Anaconda are missing. What have you found out? My Lord Snake, regarding Anaconda's group, I learned that they went to the Gemini space station to look for a few petty thieves nicknamed the Gemini 6 Ghosts. 5 of these people are psychics and 1 is a full-body prosthetic robot. Anaconda plans to trick these people to Tunguska and refine them into a magical potion. If tricking fails, they will use force. None of these people is a match for Batonji. During this time, Anaconda contacted me and said that they had contacted the 6 ghosts, but the 6 ghosts proposed to let their eldest brother, the one with full-body mechanical prostheses, join our organization. Anaconda and I reached a consensus that we disagreed and planned to give them a few days to consider. If they still disagreed, we would use force. As a result, Chapter 577, The Snake Tribe's Conspiracy. As a result, something happened to the Gemini stars, and Anaconda's group was probably involved. They should have gone to see the real god by now, right? The snake suddenly became furious, and Mamba shrank his neck in fear. You have become arrogant, conceited, and insolent now, right? You think you are already very great, right? Let me ask you, how many times can you transform? 10 times? 100 times? There are many factions in the entire chosen organization that are stronger than the snake tribe. What qualifications do you have to be arrogant? The person named Chang with full body mechanical prostheses can unite 5 people with special abilities around him, which is a very strong ability in itself. This ability is a kind of personal charm. If I use it for my own benefit, the benefits it brings will be much greater than those of you guys with strong limbs and simple minds. If Anna and you were not so arrogant and agreed to their request and brought them back at the first time, wouldn't this matter have happened? Although Anna and Z are 2 wastes, they and their subordinates also represent 15% of the combat power of our snake tribe, and they are gone just like that. Didn't Z and the others go to find the inner elixir? What's going on? Lord Snake, we agreed with Lord Anaconda and Dr. Chainsaw to contact each other every 2 weeks. After all, Mallets has no artificial satellite. But at the agreed time, they did not contact us. I have sent people to Mallets, and the latest news is that Anaconda and Lord Chainsaw encountered a strong enemy on Mallets. The local garrison sent 50 Jerome manuscript mechas to fight, but they were wiped out. Their remains have been found now. Lord Chainsaw and Anaconda were both killed by mechas. Damn it, damn it, damn it. Who on earth did this? Who has such a strong ability to defeat 50 mechas? Could it be someone from the Holy Temple? Lord Snake, this possibility cannot be ruled out. We have now launched a carpet search there with the investigation team sent by the Northern Empire, and we have found several teams of adventurers. After severe torture, we found no threat to them. I analyzed that the murderer has escaped. Mamba, who is in charge of intelligence, said cautiously. Mamba, do you have any new clues now? Said the snake. Sir, we are tracking them down. There is no progress on the Gemini side, and the Gemini 6 ghosts have also disappeared. I suspect that this matter is related to the 6 ghosts. Here are their photos. The images of 6 people appeared on the large screen on the wall. They were the Gemini 6 ghosts. However, the images were not very clear, because the main control optical computer of the Gemini was destroyed and all the data in the database was cleared. These very blurry photos were finally found from the local area network. Okay, do your best to track down the whereabouts of the Gemini 6 ghosts. Once found, torture them to extract a confession. We must know what happened to the group of people like the boa. Yes, big brother, I will arrange for someone to track them down right away. At this time, the VIP spoke. Lord Snake, we are in big trouble now. Lord Chainsaw has gone to see the true god. Our genetic modification project was arranged by Lord Chainsaw. The so-called scientists we have now are all freeloaders. Their level is limited, and they are unable to manage our research at all. We must find a scientist with attainments in biochemistry to take charge of the overall situation. The genetic laboratory on Hell Island is directly managed by VIP. As he said, Chainsaw's death dealt a heavy blow to their genetic research. Snake thought for a moment. Mamba, are there any candidates around us? We must hurry up. We really can't afford to delay. Mamba picked up the reader in his hand and said, Lord Snake, the only scientist in the entire Baikal administrative region who is capable of leading our research is Dr. He Yunlin, who lives in the city of Novikavozingjieri. He Yunlin, is that the famous poison injury treatment expert? I've heard of him. This person is very skilled and powerful. I remember we sent people to recruit him a long time ago. Why is there no result? Reporting to Lord Snake, this He Yunlin is hard to persuade. He refuses to work for us. Moreover, he has 2 friends who are almost inseparable. One of them is a martial arts master, and the other is an S-class mecha master. The people under us are no match for them at all. Mamba said helplessly. It's not that they don't want to use force, but they really dare not. How about this? Python, VIP, the 3 of you go there in person, and make sure to bring Dr. He Yunlin back to me. Yes, Lord Snake. The 3 of them answered in unison. At this time, Mamba said anxiously, my lord, that martial arts master is nothing, but that S-class mecha master Popovich is difficult to deal with. We don't have an S-class mecha master. Snake stared at Mamba with his eyes fixed. You stupid woman, I'm now thinking about whether it is right to let you be in charge of intelligence work. No matter how powerful a mecha master is, as long as he is not allowed to get on a mecha, he is a waste. In the study of the Prime Minister's residence in Shinewan Star, the capital starfield of the Galactic Empire, at the home of the Deputy Prime Minister of the Galactic Empire, Fusei Cirrus. Deputy Prime Minister Fusei and his son Caesar Cirrus began to plot the restoration of the Cirrus family. Caesar, what should we do next? Now the Deputy Prime Minister has to rely entirely on his son. He knows very well how powerful his son is. He is a natural conspirator. Father, some of the forces under our control have already established contact with some intelligence personnel from the Northern Empire. For our safety, our contact is not too deep, and the spies of the Northern Empire do not know our identities. But through them, we can send some important information to the north. Our Cirrus family's agricultural product sales and transportation network throughout the Milky Way can easily find out the location of the Galactic Empire's military forces. We can disclose this information to the Northern Empire in a timely manner. This will cause great trouble to the Galactic Empire. Fuse Cirrus nodded. Indeed, I can also provide some useful information. No, father, you must not act rashly, especially the news from your cabinet's high-level meeting. You must not disclose any information to them. The Galactic Empire's Ministry of the Interior is not a vegetarian. We don't have to get involved, and we can't let anyone know that we have anything to do with the Northern Empire. Although I have contact with the North, it has been transmitted through many channels, and will not expose our family. And the intelligence we provide to them is the intelligence that can be obtained through other channels, as long as you are willing. Once the content of the cabinet meeting is leaked, you will be targeted by the crazy people in the Ministry of the Interior. Another point is that we are only causing trouble and creating chaos for the Galactic Empire, not helping the Northern Empire to destroy the Galactic Empire. Nicholas is not a good guy. If the Northern Empire wins, it will be a disaster for our Cirrus family. Chapter 578, The Conspiracy of the Cirrus Family. Okay, I got it. I'll do as you say, Caesar. Fusei was happy that his son had considered everything. Oh, by the way, Caesar, what are your plans for Princess Xingchen? That Xingchen is very cunning. Chen Tingting has now sent her a fleet of 5 warships, and she is protected by the royal guards. It's difficult for me to do it, but she shouldn't think that she can rest easy under the protection of Xingchen. I'm going to force her out. Then she will be at our mercy. Oh. Fusei Cirrus suddenly became interested. Tell me what you are going to do specifically. This is easier said than done. Father, let's leave it in suspense. But I can tell you that I'm going to mobilize public opinion. Our Cirrus family invests astronomical figures in media and public opinion every year. The right to speak is a good thing. It can turn words into knives. Okay, you have the final say. I'll wait and see. What else do you want to do? Father, of course it's the matter that the chosen organization recruited us. There's something fishy about this. Their so-called god-making potion that can give humans superpowers and prolong their lifespan is not that simple. I have instructed Monsanto Laboratory to test and analyze the god-making potion, and the conclusion is very interesting. Caesar said meaningfully. Monsanto Laboratory belongs to Monsanto, which has a history of thousands of years. It is a giant in the field of agricultural biotechnology with a history of thousands of years. This giant company has a long history of bad deeds. Monsanto was acquired by the Cirrus family, and the main reason for the acquisition is that Monsanto has the top genetic engineering laboratory in the entire galaxy. The chosen organization came to Caesar, threw an olive branch to him, and gave him the god-making potion. In addition to being optimistic about the influence and financial resources of the Cirrus family in the Galactic Empire, Monsanto's genetic engineering laboratory is their main target. Father, the chosen organization is simply ill-intentioned and has impure motives. That god-making potion is even more problematic. We can't take it. Our family's Monsanto genetic laboratory analyzed the god-making potion and found that this potion can indeed transform and repair the genetic defects of the test subjects and induce genetic mutations in the users, giving them some special abilities. For example, the strengthening of body tissues and the generation of superpowers. However, this potion is not so perfect. First of all, this kind of genetic modification is not so safe, and the modified person will suffer great pain. Users with poor health or low willpower will die or become crazy during the body modification process, and this kind of genetic mutation is uncontrollable. The user may become a Superman, or a monster, or a pool of mincemeat. Animal experiments have confirmed that the failure rate of genetic mutation can reach 40%. This probability is beyond our ability to bear. The most important reason is that this potion itself is a trap. Its chemical structure is not very stable. Even if the genetic modification is very successful, the user's body will undergo genetic decay after more than a year. At that time, a gene stabilizer must be taken. This stabilizer was not mentioned by the chosen one at all, and this is their trick. Once my father and I take the god-making potion, if we want to continue to live, we must obey their orders. Caesar said. It's absurd. They are so vicious, even more vicious than using drugs to manipulate people. The veins on Fusei Cirrus's head were broken with anger. He was originally very supportive of cooperating with the chosen organization. It was Caesar's caution that saved his life. Son, what are you going to do? Are you going to let this go? This is not your character. Hahaha, no one knows his son better than his father. We naturally can't let them get away with it. However, everything should be viewed in two ways. Although my father and I cannot take this god-making potion, it is indeed a great gift to our family. Monsanto's genetic laboratory will soon be able to imitate the god-making potion, and it will develop a safer and more successful replacement product. And the stabilizer is no problem. Think about it, if our family's dead soldiers take the god-making potion, the overall combat effectiveness of the family can be increased several times. Moreover, we can also use the god-making potion and stabilizer to attract and control more powerful people who want to gain power. So, this is a great gift for our family. After hearing his son's explanation, Fusasaurus smiled, and his forehead wrinkles were relaxed. Great, great, great. Haha. Caesar continued, as for the chosen organization, we will continue to ask for benefits, eat the bait, and throw out the hook. When necessary, it will be good to sell them, and add some reputation to our family. Ha ha ha. The evil laughter of the father and son echoed in the study. 20 days is very short for some people. For example, for those who are traveling in space in a cryogenic chamber, it will pass in the blink of an eye. Or for those who are about to be separated, it will be gone in a flash. But for those who are suffering and struggling in pain, time passes very long. Take Xia Xingchen and his group for example, who are undergoing special training on the Sternovikavo. The worst one among them is Keelan. His body is covered with bruises, his eyelids are swollen, and there is no good place on his body. Now he is suffering from the ravages of golf. The originally handsome and elegant young man was beaten so badly that even his closest friends can't recognize him. Brunswick's eagle claw skill has made some progress now. His fingers can lift more than 1 ton of weight with one hand without being sharpened into claws. Elisa and Nina also practiced Wing Chun in a very good way. In addition to hitting wooden stakes, they also fought each other, and the result was that both of them were disfigured. However, Wing Chun combined with their supernatural powers was indeed very good. Xia Xingchen also gained a lot. Now his skin can even be invulnerable to swords and guns without luck. The goal of copper skin and iron bones will be achieved in a short time. The two Terami people also put all their energy into learning martial arts. However, all training was suspended in the afternoon of this day. Because today is the day when Miyamoto Kenichi's biological chamber treatment ends. Dr. He Yunlin's assistant entered the program on the computer, and soon, the nutrient solution in the biological treatment chamber was drained, and clean water was sprayed in, washing Miyamoto Kenichi's body, and then the heated hot air dried his body. The two assistants put on a hospital gown for Miyamoto Kenichi, and carried him to an ordinary bed. After a comprehensive examination of his physical condition, Dr. He Yunlin personally injected him with a shot of awakening medicine. 10 minutes later, Kenichi Miyamoto slowly woke up. The not very bright light in the room was so dazzling to the eyes of this person who had not seen the light for more than 40 days. But when he opened his eyes, he found that the bed was full of people, led by his master Xia Xingchen. He struggled to sit up. But what surprised him was that his body was full of strength. Master, where am I? Where is that mutant? What happened? Kenichi Miyamoto suddenly remembered that he was unconscious. Great, Miyamoto, you are finally okay. The mutant knife from the chosen organization is poisonous, and it is a special poison. We can only freeze you. We took you to Novikavo Star, and it was this Dr. He Yunlin who cured you. Thank you, Dr. He, for your help. Kenichi Miyamoto clasped his fists and bowed to Dr. He Yunlin on the bed to express his gratitude. Boy, you don't have to thank me, you should thank Xingchen. Saving the dying and the wounded is my mission, and I'm just repaying a favor. If Xingchen hadn't sent you here in time, and paid a huge price in money, and the snakes and snake blood used to treat you were also provided by Xingchen, I would not have been able to save you. Drive He Yunlin said calmly. Miyamoto Kenichi looked at Xia Xingchen with emotion. Xia Xingchen gave him a look that said it was nothing. Miyamoto, get up and walk around, to adapt to your body. This time you have a blessing in disguise, and your body has also been transformed by the precious blood of the millet's anaconda. Xia Xingchen introduced to Miyamoto Kenichi in detail the changes that might occur to his body after the transformation. After adapting for half a day, Dr. He Yunlin conducted a comprehensive physical test on him. The results were very exciting. Chapter 579 Miyamoto Kenichi's Special Training. After recovering, Miyamoto Kenichi was on pins and needles. He saw Xia Xingchen and others receiving special training from martial arts master Lester, and he was also very anxious. However, he still did 3 days of recovery training at the suggestion of He Yunlin. But finally he couldn't bear it anymore. The 2 long swords that had accompanied him for many years were destroyed in this battle with her, which made him feel that something was missing. And seeing that his partners were all engaged in the intense special training and made great progress, he took the initiative to find Xia Xingchen and asked Xia Xingchen to ask Master Lester to give him special training as well. Master Lester thought for a moment and said, "Xingchen, Miyamoto, to tell you the truth, weapons are my weakness. I really can't give Miyamoto too much good advice in this regard. But I have a friend who is a master of cold weapon casting and lives on the Aleutian Islands. He is a master of weapon manufacturing and a swordsman. He is very good at using weapons to fight and forge weapons. Although this man is not a martial arts master, if he uses weapons and fights with me to the death, he is capable of dying with me. How about this? Tomorrow, I will take you to meet him." "Thank you, Master Lester." Miyamoto Kenichi was very excited. The next morning, everyone boarded the private plane of the Popovich family and flew to an island at the northernmost tip of this continent. This island is called Aleutian Island, located at the northernmost tip of the continent where Jiuli City is located. The climate here is relatively harsh, and the biting sea breeze and cold ocean currents are constantly eroding here. Aleutian Island is not small in area, with more than 100 square kilometers. The island is covered with dense boreal forests. Since there are only dozens of residents, the vegetation on the island is well protected and very dense. The island is very rich in mineral resources, including a variety of metal mineral resources. The aircraft that Xia Xingchen and his team took is called an airplane, but it is actually a combination of a rotor helicopter and a magnetic levitation car. This flying device is 15 meters long and has a wingspan of 16.8 meters. There are 4 turbine blades and 2 magnetic levitation launch devices on the fuselage. The energy system is a high-energy storage battery pack for 2 sets of Mechas. This aircraft is approved to carry 10 passengers and can fly in the air at about 30 meters. The atmospheric circulation conditions of Novakovo are not suitable for aircraft to fly at high altitudes. Before the plane went to the Aleutian Island, Lester told Xia Xingchen to buy more than a ton of the strongest vodka from the most famous winery in Jiuli City. The people of the Northern Empire are addicted to alcohol, and the guy they are going to meet this time is even more eager to soak himself in a wine barrel every day. According to Lester, the guy they are going to meet has a very bad temper. Sometimes he doesn't recognize his relatives, but when facing good wine, he has no temper at all. The plane took more than 2 hours to fly over 1,000 kilometers. This time, in addition to Master Lester, there were also Yugo, Yangma, Xia Xingchen and Miyamoto Kenichi on the plane. Keela wanted to come, but Lester said that his training was very special and could not stop, and he could switch to steel ball training. Keela fainted in despair. There was only an open space the size of a football field on the Aleutian Island. In the space age, almost all aircraft have vertical takeoff and landing capabilities. Such an open space is enough to take off and land most aircraft. At this time, there was only this plane parked alone in the field. At this time, the landing site was covered with white snow. A few hundred meters away from the airport is where more than a dozen residents on the Aleutian Island live. There are only 2 shops, a tavern, and a grocery store. Lester pointed to the 2 shops and said, "This is it. The grocery store is where we are going." This grocery store is a pure wooden structure, which is rarely seen in this era. The house is covered with thick snow, almost merging with the snow on the ground. The snow on the wooden signboard was cleaned up, and a pattern of an axe and a dagger crossed was painted on it with black paint. Lester walked in front and pushed open the heavy wooden door. The others followed closely and entered the house. "Dear guests, welcome. Our store has the best tinware and handmade melee weapons in the entire Northern Empire. What would you like to order?" "Oh, it turns out to be Master Lester. I'm sorry for not welcoming you." A thin, 20-year-old white young man came up to greet him. The interior of this store is made of natural wood, and the decorations are all stones and animal fur. There are also some decorations made of the bones of huge marine creatures hanging on the wall. There are 3 rows of shelves in the store, one of which is for daily sundries. One row is mainly weapons with hand axes and daggers, and the other row is a dazzling array of tin products. It turns out to be Master Lester. I'm sorry for not welcoming you. The man took the initiative to open his arms and hugged Lester. "Alan, you look stronger. Not as frail as before." Lester was also very happy to see the young man and patted his shoulder. "This is also thanks to you and Dr. He Yunlin. Dr. He pulled me back from the gate of hell, and you taught us the exercises to strengthen our bodies, so I can survive." "What are you doing?" Alan said. "Oh, a few friends want to see your grandfather." "Is your grandfather here?" Lester asked. "Yes, he should be drinking in the cave behind. I'll say hello to him. Please wait. But you also know that grandpa has a bad temper when he drinks. If I offend you later, please forgive me," Alan said politely. "Haha, Alan, you are still so smart and do things flawlessly. If you hadn't helped this old guy look after the store, this store would have gone bankrupt long ago." Lester laughed. "Old man, you are too kind. I will contact grandpa right away." After the man named Alan finished speaking, he led everyone through the shelves and came to the innermost part of the house. There was a huge fireplace here, and the wood was burning inside, making crackling sounds. There are plenty of trees on the Aleutian Islands, and the calorific value of the wood here is 3 times that of the wood on Earth, making it much more burning resistant than wood on Earth. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 580, Antonov Story. There was a counter next to the fireplace, and there was a pager on the counter. Alan pressed the pager, and the beep on the other end of the pager lasted for nearly 2 minutes before an angry voice came from the speaker. "Alan, you bastard, do you want to die? Why bother me to drink when you have something to say that can't wait until tonight?" Alan looked embarrassed, but Lester smiled at him without minding. "Grandpa, this is what happened. Master Lester brought a few friends to visit you. What is that old man doing here? Did he bring any wine?" Alan was even more embarrassed. He looked at Lester, and Lester nodded to him. "Yes, Grandpa, they brought good wine." "Then, for the sake of the wine, let them in. They know the way." Stop for a moment and let the minecart run." Alan then said to Lester, "Master, I'm sorry, Grandpa is drunk again. Please follow me." Lester gestured to Xia Xingchen, and you go to move more than a dozen boxes of vodka from the 2 small full-legged robots parked outside the house into the house. Under the leadership of Alan, they opened a door on the wall. Behind the door was a corridor with 8 rooms on both sides of the corridor. The signs on the doors of the rooms had the names of several people: Antonov, Nefo, Alan and X. The other doors had the names of kitchen, bathroom, toilet, and warehouse. At the end of the corridor was a living room of more than 30 square meters, with several chairs placed under the wall of the living room. In the middle of the living room was a rail and a brake device. The other end of the rail was connected to a cave nearly 4 meters high. Xia Xingchen and others moved all the wine into the living room. "Please stay here for a while. The minecart to pick you up will be here soon," Alan said politely, then turned around and said goodbye. The shop outside still needs him to look after it. While waiting for the minecart, Lester introduced the person they were going to see and the situation of this shop. The weapon forging master they were going to see was also a very powerful swordsman named Antonov. This Antonov family was a blacksmith who used the traditional craftsmanship of the earth to make cold weapons. Although technology is very advanced now, all kinds of materials can be obtained in the laboratory and can be easily made into cold weapons, but in the eyes of many warriors, the weapons made by modern technology, assembly lines and laboratories have no soul and cannot communicate with warriors or swordsmen. Therefore, the products of these traditional craftsmen are still very popular in the market. Antonov grew up on the Aleutian Island for generations. He learned martial arts and cold weapon forging technology from his father since he was a child. Later, Antonov was attracted by a female adventurer who came to their store to buy weapons. So he left here secretly despite his parents' opposition. Antonov and this woman were very affectionate. The two of them adventured and wandered around the Milky Way, learning forging knowledge everywhere and sparring with other swordsmen. However, things never go as planned. A few years later, this woman was killed by a group of star pirates roaming around the Milky Way. Antonov was furious. He almost followed the footprints of these star pirates and ran across most of the Milky Way before killing all of them and their families. When Antonov returned to Novakovo after revenge, he found that his parents had died of worry. Antonov knelt in the snow and cried for 3 days and 3 nights in front of his parents' graves and almost died of hunger and cold. He felt that he had been too unfilial over the years and was sorry for his parents who raised him. So he took care of the store that had been passed down from generation to generation in his family again. Because his store has a long history, it is well known throughout the Baikal starfield. Most of the products he manufactured are sold on the local area network, and every 6 months, dealers will send spacecraft to deliver supplies to him and take away his products. Of course, there are also many warriors and adventurers who come to him in person to order daggers or hatchets. With this income, he at least has no worries about food and drink. Life on the island is not easy. Except for Antonov's shop and the tavern on the island, other residents make a living by fishing and handicraft manufacturing. There are ocean currents around the Aleutian Islands, so the sea water does not freeze all year round. And there is a continental shelf around the island, so there are rich varieties of aquatic products. Because the temperature on the island is below zero all year round. After the fishermen go out to sea to catch fish, they directly pour the fish and seawater into special boxes and put them in the open yard. There will be buyers coming regularly to take away these frozen seafood in exchange for a meager income. Other islanders are carpenters. They are skillful craftsmen. They cut down trees on the island and carve them into exquisite wooden crafts and small furniture. However, both professions are very risky. Fishing is needless to say. If you fall into the ice sea in the ice and snow, you basically don't need to be rescued. Some fishermen will hit icebergs, and the boat will be destroyed, and people will die. And those craftsmen who stayed at home were not so safe either. Carbon monoxide deaths caused by poor ventilation due to burning firewood for heating also occurred frequently. In addition, many people did carpentry work at home. The shavings and sawdust that were cut off were the best fuel. These things would float into the fireplace and ignite, and then float around. Since all the buildings on the island were made of wood, the flying of sparks would cause serious fires. Therefore, there were some orphans on the island. Antonov adopted 7 or 8 orphans over the years. He supported these orphans and taught them skills. These orphans helped him work in return. Several of the orphans left here when they grew up. Antonov not only did not stop them, but gave them travel expenses. These children would come back to visit Antonov every few years. Antonov did not want the money they brought and threw it all into the fireplace. But the old man would happily accept the wine, various smelting tools and rare minerals they brought. Now there are only 3 young people here. They are all in their 20s, and because of their personality and physical reasons, they are unwilling to leave here, and they are reluctant to leave Antonov, so they still stay here. Alan was the youngest of 3 children. He was frail and sickly. When he was 7 or 8 years old, his family's fishing boat capsized in the icy sea, and all his family members died except him. However, due to being immersed in the cold sea water for too long, Alan's body was seriously damaged. Chapter 581 Antonov's story. When Alan was in his teens, he got seriously ill and almost died. In desperation, Antonov finally left Aleutian Island and went to Jiuli City to seek help from Dr. He Yunlin. All his savings were enough to pay half of the medical expenses. It was only after Lester came forward that He Yunlin agreed to the treatment and let the child enter the biological treatment cabin. The child was saved by using the special potion made by Dr. He Yunlin. Master Lester also taught the 3 children a set of internal skills to strengthen their bodies. So Lester and Antonov became good friends. Lester would stay with Antonov for a few days every year. The 2 old friends drank and talked about the past. Although he was also very troubled by Antonov's crazy temper when he drank too much, the personal relationship between the 2 was very good. The reason why Aleutian Island has such rich metal mineral resources is that Aleutian Island was formed billions of years ago by a huge comet rich in metal element and thousands of kilometers in diameter hitting the star Novakovo. The mineral resources of Aleutian Island come from this comet. Later, Antonov's ancestors came here, took root here, and ran the family's weapons shop for generations. The island's mineral resources, iron and tin reserves, are very huge. So in addition to making weapons, Antonov also made a large number of tinware, especially tin wine jugs, which are a must-have for the nobles of the Northern Empire. 10 minutes later, a rumbling sound came from the pit at the other end of the track, and a minecar consisting of 2 carriages drove here. Each minecar is the size of an ordinary car, and each carriage has a tractor at one end. The driver of the minecar is a bald white man who is 1.9 meters tall. He wears a black eye patch on his left eye, which gives people a very tough feeling. He jumped off the car and clasped his fists to Lester. "Master Lester, I've kept you waiting for a long time. I'll take you to see my grandfather now." Lester smiled and said, "Axe, you look much stronger now. Don't worry, help load these wines for your grandfather into the car. If you forget this, your grandfather will not forgive you." "Okay, old man." Axe agreed and helped Xia Xingchen and others move the wine to the minecar. The wine occupied most of the carriage. The rest of the people got on the minecar and could barely sit down. The minecar moved slowly, at a speed of only more than 10 kilometers per hour. The slope of the mine tunnel was very gentle, and it was almost difficult to feel the obvious downward movement. There were 3 long burning lights every 5 meters in the entire mine tunnel. According to Axe, the underground geothermal resources of the Aleutian Islands are very rich. The lighting of these mines and the electricity of the entire island are provided by geothermal generators. 10 minutes later, the minecart stopped. According to Xia Xingchen's calculations, they were already 150 meters underground. The scene in front of them stunned Xia Xingchen and others. In the underground mine tunnel space of the Aleutian Island, the minecart that Xia Xingchen and others were riding in reached the end. This mine tunnel was formed by the Antonov family's generations of mining ore, and it goes more than 20 kilometers underground. The equipment inside was also added over the past few hundred years. While driving the minecart, Axe introduced the history of this mine tunnel to Xia Xingchen and others. 10 minutes later, the minecart arrived at the end. The scene in front of them stunned them. This is a cylindrical underground space with a diameter of more than 50 meters and a depth of more than 50 meters. At the bottom of the space is a huge magma pool, and the magma inside is rolling. However, due to the large number of pits and spaces on the surrounding walls, cold air is constantly circulating here, so the temperature of the upper part of the underground space is not too high, only about 20 degrees. There are elevators around the underground space. In the middle of the space, there is a platform with an area of more than 300 square meters. Looking down from above, you can see 2 people there. One of them is forging a red-hot weapon on an anvil with a hammer, and the other is lying on a bench, holding a tin wine jug, and drinking vodka comfortably. Everyone took a lift to the huge platform. "Antonov, old man, I came to see you." Master Lester took the initiative to greet the man lying on the recliner. But Antonov, who was lying on the recliner, raised the tin wine jug beside him and took a big sip without even lifting his butt. "Lester, you old bastard, haven't been here for almost 2 years. I thought you were dead. What have you been doing in the past 2 years?" Antonov's words were full of gunpowder. Lester was furious when he heard what he said. "Old man, what are you talking about? The broken weapon formula you designed for Popovich has caused his mecha to spend tens of billions of star coins for more than 2 years and still not be repaired." Antonov jumped up from the recliner when he heard it. "You are talking nonsense. The material composition ratio designed by me personally is the strongest and most resilient material. How dare you frame me? I want to duel with you." It turned out that the weapon alloy magnetic double rings on Popovich's mecha were designed by Lester and Antonov. The material ratio of the double rings is the formula provided by Antonov. The appearance and martial arts of the double rings were designed by Master Lester. Weapon design and manufacturing masters like Antonov are the most confident in the weapons they designed. You can say that others are not good, but he will never allow others to belittle his work. He jumped up, staggered to Nafe, who was forging weapons, grabbed a red-hot furnace hook, used the furnace hook as a weapon, and smashed Lester on the head. Lester was also not vague, and fought back mercilessly. The 2 old men fought in a ball. Xia Xingchen and others were all confused. However, Kenichi Miyamoto's eyes lit up. He saw Antonov's furnace hook. Although the moves were a bit messy and the steps were weak, this was all due to drinking too much. An expert can tell whether there is a winner with just one move. Kenichi Miyamoto knew very well that, even if he was in his prime, he was no match for this drunk old man. Looking at the two old guys fighting and making a mess, Axe said helplessly, "These two old guys are often like this. There is nothing we can do. You will get used to it after a long time." Antonov drank a lot of wine. If this person drinks too much, if he sits there honestly, the alcohol will take a long time to get to him. Once a person moves vigorously, or goes outside, and is blown by the wind, the alcohol will instantly rush to his head. Chapter 582, Knife Chamber. Antonov's intense activity was not good. The alcohol soon took effect. He waved the furnace hook in his hand randomly. In front of him, Lester turned into 2 or 3. "Hey, Lester, how can you split yourself?" Seeing this, Master Lester decided to take advantage of his weakness and kill him. With a flick of his left hand, Systema's move was used. This move not only dodged Antonov's attack, but Lester also took advantage of the situation and dodged behind Antonov. He raised his foot and kicked Antonov's butt, kicking him more than 10 meters away. Antonov hit his head against the wall and knelt down with his face against the wall. Xia Xingchen and others were all dumbfounded. They were confused by the fight when they met. However, at this time, Axe looked very normal and didn't seem to be surprised, while Nifo, who was forging iron on the side, smiled at Master Lester. "It's okay, that guy was drunk and lost consciousness," Lester explained. "This happened too many times, and they were used to it." Xia Xingchen used the inside skill to see that it was indeed the case. Antonov was now snoring loudly. Axe walked over and carried Antonov to the bench like a chicken. Not long after, Axe drove the minecart away. After a while, when he appeared again, Alan also came. They brought a sumptuous meal, and on the platform, everyone gathered around a table and ate and drank. After eating and drinking, everyone sat around the wall. Alan accompanied everyone here, while Axe and Nifo continued to forge weapons. Watching the hammers in the hands of the two people hitting the dagger on the anvil again and again, the sound was full of rhythm, implying a certain rhythm and law. Grandpa said that forging weapons is also a kind of practice. It will not only exercise your eyesight, arm strength, waist strength and leg strength, but also temper our will. Alan explained to everyone. "It's a pity that I was too weak before, and I couldn't inherit my grandfather's legacy." Alan's tone was full of loneliness. "Alan, although you don't have a strong body, you have a kind heart and extraordinary wisdom. This is God's compensation to you. God is fair to each of us." Lester comforted. 3 hours later, Antonov, who was still in a deep sleep, finally got up from the bench. "Ouch, my nose." Only then did he feel the sequelae of the close contact between his face and the wall. "Hey, old ghost Lester, why are you here? You are still alive." Lester looked at him with a smile. "How can I die if you are not dead? You must do this first." The two laughed and hugged each other. Lester introduced Xia Xingchen and others to Antonov and explained the purpose of his visit, to help Miyamoto Kenichi find weapons and conduct special training. Antonov looked at Miyamoto Kenichi curiously. "As a Japanese, you are the most persistent in kendo. The sword is there as long as the person is there, and the sword dies and the person dies. This is the first time I've seen a Japanese who has lost his weapon, but is still alive." Kenichi Miyamoto's face suddenly turned red like a cooked crab. Although Antonov's words were harsh, they were a fact. Kenichi Miyamoto suppressed the anger in his heart and did not take action. His life belonged to Xia Xingchen, and fighting with the guy in front of him would be suicide, and he could not do it without Xia Xingchen's permission. Ha ha ha, not bad, not bad. Strong will. This is a necessary condition to become an excellent swordsman or kendo master. Cold weapons such as swords will affect the user's emotions. If they kill too many people, it can make the user become cold, tyrannical, bloodthirsty, and lose his cool. Only those with strong will can resist the influence of such negative emotions. X, take this kid to the armory to choose a knife. Look at the weapon he is best at. Master Antonov ordered. Axe agreed and took Kenichi Miyamoto up the stairs along the passage on the wall of the underground space. There were more than a dozen caves of different sizes on the wall. According to Axe, these caves were also continuously opened up by Antonov and his ancestors, and were used as warehouses, bedrooms, etc. When he walked into the so-called armory, Kenichi Miyamoto was dazzled. Although the entrance of this cave was very small, after walking more than 10 meters inside, what came into view was a low space of more than 500 square meters. There were tens of thousands of various swords and daggers densely stacked on the shelves and walls. Kenichi Miyamoto himself was very knowledgeable about these things. He found that most of the types of swords that could be seen in the Milky Way could be found here. This is a sword museum. The air in the cave was filled with the smell of sword maintenance oil. Swords seem to have a simple structure, but in fact, they are not. If they are not properly kept, they will also cause damage. Although the humidity in this cave is very low, swords must be scientifically maintained, so that they can be preserved for a long time. Axe introduced the origins of these swords to Kenichi Miyamoto, and talked in detail about the maintenance methods of these swords. Axe and his family all use the ancient methods on Earth to maintain these swords. When the sword maintenance reaches a certain stage, the blade will be densely covered with antique white spots, which is caused by the emergence of the phosphine and calcium in the sword body. If it is rubbed hard to produce a heat effect, it can reflect purple or green light. At this time, it should continue to be maintained for about half a year. The sword body will naturally be covered with a layer of carbon-like material, which can be kept rust-free forever. The maintenance of the sword is complete at this point. Antonov insisted on using the ancient method to forge swords. He asked several children to do this to cultivate the sword heart. Of course, these tasks were mainly done by Alan. He was very weak and had no way to forge weapons. He could only take care of the shop and maintain the swords every day. But soon, Kenichi Miyamoto frowned. Although there are many types of swords here, there are not many fine ones. Axe explained that most of the weapons here are indeed common goods, and these are just props that Antonov gave them for teaching. Sometimes customers come to customize swords, and also come in to select weapons as samples. Kenichi Miyamoto then put aside his doubts. He walked forward and picked out 2 Muramasa. Then the two returned to the platform. Chapter 583. The knife broke again. Antonov looked at the weapon that Miyamoto Kenichi chose and nodded. Japanese sword, Muramasa, but this is the most common choice for Japanese warriors. This kid is a double sword style. Antonov introduced the types of Japanese swords to everyone. After listening to Antonov's introduction, everyone nodded frequently. They didn't expect that a small Japanese sword would contain such a great knowledge. At the same time, they were full of admiration for Antonov's rich professional knowledge. This old man is completely two different people when he is sober and when he is drunk, but unfortunately this old guy is not sober most of the time. Antonov stood up and picked up 2 more than 1 meter long furnace hooks from the anvil. Boy, the 2 knives in your hands are not good knives, and I won't take advantage of you. Come on, I'll use this furnace hook. You attack with all your strength. Old man, I'm sorry. Miyamoto drew out his double swords. He knew that the old man in front of him was very difficult to deal with. He just stood there, not like a warrior at all. He looked like he had flaws all over his body, but it seemed that there was no flaw at all. 2 sword style. Firebird. 2 sword style. Strangling. 2 sword style. Firefly. Miyamoto Kenichi used all his strength right from the start. However, the special move he used with all his strength was easily resolved. Antonov's movement seemed plain and simple, but his every move contained a rhythm, and this rhythm seemed to contain certain rules. Boy, do you have any special moves? Use them all together. If you don't have any, I will attack you. Miyamoto didn't say anything. He knew that this was the opponent's method. Some opponents were good at disturbing their minds by saying some strange words. His only response was to raise both swords horizontally and chop at Antonov. But soon, he had to stop attacking because 2 furnace hooks were already pointing at his wrist. Miyamoto quickly changed his moves, because if he continued to attack, his wrist would be disabled before Antonov was attacked. However, Miyamoto, who changed his moves, soon found that Antonov also changed his moves. Antonov's change of moves was not big, but the furnace hook was staring at his wrist like 2 poisonous fangs. Miyamoto had no choice but to continue changing his moves. More than 10 minutes passed, and Miyamoto Kenichi was sweating profusely. Although the temperature here was only more than 20 degrees Celsius, with Miyamoto Kenichi's body now strengthened by snake blood, his clothes were soaked. although his physical strength was still sufficient. But Miyamoto Kenichi felt that his spirit was close to collapse. In the past 10 minutes, he did not use any of his moves completely. All his moves were restricted by Antonov's furnace hook, and he had no way to exert force at all. This was a kind of crushing in strength, and this helplessness was a kind of mental torture. So he felt exhausted. Suddenly, Antonov changed his moves, and the furnace hook in his right hand suddenly spun up, drawing an arc in the air. The rapid friction between the hook and the air actually made a sonic boom-like whistling sound. The next moment, people were surprised to find that the front of the furnace hook was actually burned red by the temperature of the air friction. It was simply a magical skill. Facing the oncoming fire hook, Kenichi Miyamoto got angry. He crossed his two swords in front of his chest and rushed towards his opponent. Two-sword style. Dragon hunting. The blade and the sword energy gathered in front of Kenichi Miyamoto's chest, like two huge dragon claws, rushing towards Antonov. Crack, a crisp sound. There was no sound at the scene. Kenichi Miyamoto, who had been rushing forward with all his strength, was frozen in place, as if the pause button was pressed. People saw that the fire hook in Antonov's hand was hitting the center of the two Muramasa Japanese swords. The powerful impact force abruptly stopped the full force of Kenichi Miyamoto's fierce attack, and the two Muramasa in Kenichi Miyamoto's hands, from the contact point between the sword and the hook, actually produced spider web-like cracks. Kenichi Miyamoto's hands trembled, and then in this trembling, the Muramasa demon sword made of pure steel actually broke into pieces. This is impossible. Miyamoto Kenichi sat down on the ground dejectedly. In less than 2 months, his weapon was damaged for the second time. For a samurai, this is simply a disaster. Old man, can I see the weapon in your hand? What material is it made of? Yugo's eyes were fixed on the 2-finger-thick furnace hooks in Antonov's hands. Antonov laughed and handed the furnace hooks to Yugo. The temperature on the furnace hooks has not dropped yet, but Yugo didn't care so much. He carefully observed the material of the furnace hooks, recalling the contents of the book Metal Fuel Identification Encyclopedia. Hey, judging from the external characteristics, this is iron. Yugo bent the furnace hook in his hand lightly, and the furnace hook in his hand was bent. Damn, this is iron, and it's the most common kind with rich impurities. Xia Xingchen also took the furnace hook and observed it carefully, and was shocked. Antonov broke the Japanese sword with just such a thing, which shows how powerful the move just now was. Miyamoto Kenichi, who was hit hard, walked over and took the furnace hook from Yugo, feeling even more lost. Suddenly, he took a few quick steps and knelt in front of Antonov. Master, please teach me. Chapter 584, The Weakness of Japanese Sword Skills. Miyamoto Kenichi was defeated by the weapon maker Antonov with 2 ordinary iron furnace hooks, and the 2 Muramasa Japanese swords in his hands were also broken. This was the second time that his weapons were broken in 2 months. He almost lost his life last time. This time, his self-confidence suffered a serious blow. Suddenly, he took a few quick steps, knelt in front of Antonov, and bowed 3 times. Master, please teach me. Antonov accepted his kneeling calmly. He thought for a while and said, Miyamoto, you have a lot of questions. Let me slowly explain. First of all, although your body is strong, I feel that you have not adapted to this body. Am I right about this? The old man is really sharp-eyed. I was poisoned by a snake more than a month ago. When Dr. He Yunlin helped me detoxify, the snake blood component in the antidote transformed my body. My strength has increased by nearly 1-fold. I really haven't fully adapted to this body. Many moves feel very awkward after using them. Miyamoto Kenichi explained. His eyes lit up. He found that Antonov was indeed an expert. He saw through his true colors with one move. Antonov went on to say, the second point is that you are too dependent on the weapon in your hand. Once the weapon is restricted or damaged, you will be completely at a loss. How can you fight? Miyamoto Kenichi was at a loss. He didn't understand what he meant. This is a drawback of the Japanese swordsmanship, because the Japanese on Earth used to be short, with an average adult height of about 1.5 meters. In order to achieve the greatest killing effect, the Japanese put all their means of attack on the sword, and all their body movements were only for the sword moves. This creates limitations, especially in the situation just now, or in a small space. Once the sword moves cannot be used, Miyamoto Kenichi will have no way out. Another point is that you Japanese put the essence of all your moves on the sword and try every means to get a good sword, completely relying on the quality of the sword. What if one day your sword is not in your hand, or the enemy's weapon can damage the sword in your hand? What should you do? Antonov's explanation made Miyamoto Kenichi feel like he had an epiphany. He jumped and kowtowed. Boy, get up. I will teach you how to protect your weapon first. After you learn this, I will help you forge weapons and adapt the strength of your body. I wonder if you have ever practiced internal energy. Miyamoto Kenichi stood up and said respectfully, "Old man, I have been practicing Aikido since I was a child and learned the method of nourishing ki in Aikido. Later I met the master, and then the master taught me the turtle breathing technique. Aikido is too common, so you don't need to practice it. I have heard of the turtle breathing technique. It is a very good internal energy method. As long as you persist, there will be only benefits and no harm. I think your teacher must have taught you how to use internal force to increase the power of the sword. This is also a feature of your Japanese sword skills, but have you ever thought about using internal force to protect the weapons in your hands? And there are many such methods in the martial arts of the Chinese on earth. Teacher Antonov, I haven't thought about this, but our Japanese martial arts will not be able to exert their power without using all our strength. I'm afraid that using this kind of strength to protect weapons, if you don't break the inertial thinking, you will always be able to live in your own world, bound, and your martial arts will never be improved. The warriors and swordsmen of the Chinese tribe only reach the peak of their martial arts when they are in their 50s, 60s, or 70s, while the warriors of your Japanese tribe gradually go downhill because of the decline of physical functions when they are around 50 years old. Have you ever considered this reason? Antonov's words pierced into Miyamoto Kenichi's heart like a sharp knife. Miyamoto Kenichi wanted to refute. He felt that the sword skills of the Japanese tribe were invincible. After thousands of years of development, it was impossible for them to be as unbearable as Antonov said, but the reality was so cruel that he could not find a reason to refute in the face of facts. Also, old man, what I don't understand is why you can smash my Muramasa with a furnace hook. Although it is said that there is a reason for internal strength, I don't think it is that simple. Yes, you are teachable, and you observe very carefully. Miyamoto, I wonder if you are familiar with the game of egg top. Miyamoto Kenichi shook his head blankly. At this time, Xia Xingchen stepped forward and said, Miyamoto, egg butting is a new type of entertainment activity invented by the Chinese to celebrate their traditional festival, the Dragon Boat Festival. A group of people each choose a boiled egg, and they push the eggs against each other. The person whose egg breaks loses, and then the loser eats his own egg. The person who persists to the end is the winner, and it will be a good omen to break his own egg and eat it. There is a trick to egg butting. Xia Xingchen smiled and said, I think that Mr. Antonov used this method. He should have used his internal force to protect the furnace hook so that it would not break in a violent collision. This is the same as the principle of many martial arts in the Chinese martial arts. Internal force can not only protect the body, but also protect martial arts. Moreover, Mr. Antonov used the tip with the strongest center of gravity on the furnace hook to attack the weakest point on Miyamoto Kenichi's sword, which would have such an effect. Otherwise, if the landing point of the hook deviated slightly, such a result would not occur, and it would even be cut off by Miyamoto's Muramasa. Well said. Not bad. Not bad. Master Lester and Master Antonov applauded at the same time. Miyamoto Kenichi then understood where the problem was. Then Master Antonov taught Miyamoto Kenichi a set of methods to use internal force to protect the weapon in his hand. Although Miyamoto Kenichi learned it, it was not so easy for him to change the habit of nearly 40 years. Antonov asked X to arrange for everyone to rest in the rooms opened up in several caves in the underground space. Nothing happened that night. When everyone woke up the next day, they found that Miyamoto Kenichi was still on the platform, holding 2 furnace hooks in his hands in a daze. It turned out that Miyamoto Kenichi had not slept all night. He used the method taught by Antonov to use his martial arts, and found that he almost lost the ability to use weapons. It is difficult to integrate this method with his own martial arts, and it is almost like starting all over again. Looking at the haggard Kenichi Miyamoto, Antonov and Master Lester both laughed. Boy, any martial arts must be developed step by step. You are just rushing and not achieving your goals. Come with me, you need a weapon that suits you. And it is a blessing to use a weapon that you have made yourself. Xia Xingchen was deeply touched by this sentence. As a mecha master and senior mecha repairman, only the mechas that he designed, assembled and debugged himself are the most handy. Under the leadership of Antonov, everyone came to a cave on the platform. When they walked into the cave, they found that there was a different world inside. Chapter 585, Magma Furnace and 100 Forged Steel. Inside the cave was a passage that spiraled downward. After walking down for dozens of meters, they suddenly felt that the surroundings seemed to have changed, as if some force was pulling them down. Finally, they reached the end of the passage. This was a space of about 100 square meters, 2 meters high, with various tools for forging and smelting metals. In the middle of the room were several huge anvils and a special furnace. What made this furnace different was that it did not rely on burning coal or gas, but streams of boiling magma flowed into the furnace along the wall, and then flowed into the underground magma tank along the pipe from the other end of the furnace. The temperature in this room was actually over 40 degrees. Xia Xingchen and others felt that their blood was about to boil. Yugo suddenly said, I read in a book that there is a relationship between the color of magma and temperature. In clear weather, and with good perspective, the relationship between the color of the lava flow and the corresponding temperature. I see that the temperature of this magma melting furnace is golden yellow, which should be around 1100 degrees. It is a low temperature melting furnace. Antonov responded with admiration. This friend from Terami actually knows how to melt. Master, you are too kind. We Terami people learned smelting from anthropology. We have only been making iron for a few hundred years. The technology is very primitive. I have only read about magma melting furnaces in books, but have never seen the real thing. Today I really saw it. This magma melting furnace has a history of more than 200 or 300 years. It was built by my great-grandfather himself. The temperature of this furnace is kept at 1100 all year round, which is just enough to melt steel. After thousands of hammers and tempers, the best steel for making cold weapons is made, the 100 tempered steel. In ancient times, humans called the steel and its process made by repeatedly folding, forging, and deforming fried steel as 100 tempered steel. Its characteristic is repeated heating and forging. Repeated forging can remove inclusions in the steel and reduce the size of the remaining inclusions so that its composition tends to be uniform, the structure tends to be dense, the grains are refined, and the performance of the steel is improved. Ancient craftsmen heated and forged the fine iron more than 100 times and forged it for a while, and then it became heavy and light until the weight did not decrease, which was called 100 steel making. The sword making technology of the Japanese people was passed down from the Chinese people. This forging of steel is the most important step, which is called ball forging. Through this step, impurities such as sulfur and excess carbon in the steel can be removed to increase the elasticity and toughness of the steel. This is like kneading dough. The more layers are hammered, the more uniform the carbon and various components in the steel will be, and the finer the iron crystals will be. The final forged steel has uniform quality, thousands of layers, and is very tough, and finally becomes a steel material with uniform texture. The unique patterns on the Japanese swords are hammered out in this way. Miyamoto Kenichi, have you ever learned how to make and forge a sword? Old man, I learned it when I was a child. The sword making skills of our Miyamoto family are also passed down from generation to generation. Every man in the Miyamoto family must forge 2 real swords of his own before the age of 30. But my family was wiped out by the enemy, and the most essential part of the family's sword making craftsmanship was lost. I have been busy improving my strength and taking revenge in recent years, so I have not done this. This is a great regret in my life. Everyone sighed for Miyamoto Kenichi's experience. Miyamoto, don't regret it. I will teach you how to make a sword. In the underground of the Aleutian island of Novikavostar, Baikal region, Northern Empire, in the mine operated by the Antonov family for generations. Master Antonov decided to teach Miyamoto Kenichi the tricks of making weapons and let Miyamoto Kenichi make 2 weapons himself. The first thing they had to determine was the style of the weapon. Miyamoto Kenichi originally wanted to make 2 Muramasa swords, but Antonov denied it. Miyamoto, the current Muramasa sword is no longer suitable for you. The characteristics of Muramasa are light, sharp, and suitable for people with agile body movements and tricky swordsmanship. And I see that your martial arts, Miyamoto, are open and close, and the momentum is magnificent. If you use the Muramasa sword, the load on the blade is too great. Moreover, your body has been transformed now, and the power of your moves will become stronger and stronger in the future. Even if I come to make 2 Muramasa swords for you personally, I can't bear this huge force. Although you can use internal force to strengthen the blade, it is a bit of a loss. So, I suggest you change your sword. Miyamoto Kenichi thought for a long time, and felt that Antonov did hit the point. Then he asked Xia Xingchen, Yugo and others for their opinions. Old man, can you recommend a sword that suits my martial arts? X. Go get a sample of the Tang sword. Yes, Grandpa. X agreed and turned to get the sword. Soon, X took out a long sword from the sword library and handed it to Kenichi Miyamoto. Kenichi Miyamoto's eyes lit up. The sword in front of him was about 1 meter long, 2 centimeters wide, with a straight blade, and weighing about 3 pounds. This is a Tang sword. The term Tang sword is a general term for the 4 types of military swords of the ancient Chinese people in the Sui and Tang dynasties on Earth, generally referring to the Tang horizontal sword. It does not refer to a specific sword. It does not refer only to the Tang dynasty. The blade shape of the Tang sword comes from the Han ring-headed sword. Most of the military Tang swords in the early period retained the ring head and also had a straight blade. The Tang sword is a military sword. Its biggest function is combat. Its production process is strict, and it also needs to consider another use in combat, that is, armor breaking and durability. Armor breaking requires hardness and a narrow blade edge. Durability requires toughness, so the Tang sword uses the most advanced steel-clad technology. The outer skin is wrought iron, with 100-fold steel in the middle, and some blade edges use local quenching technology, that is, covering the blade with soil and burning it. The blade is hard and can chop through armor, while the blade is tough and durable. This is also the biggest difference from the Japanese sword. The Japanese sword pursues lightness, sharpness, and lacks armor breaking ability. The manufacturing process of the Japanese sword of the Japanese people is derived from the Tang sword. Unfortunately, after 1,000 years of internal wars among the Chinese, the manufacturing process of the Tang sword was almost lost. Later, after hundreds of years of trial production and improvement, based on historical materials, the craftsmanship of the Tang sword was finally restored. Miyamoto Kenichi took over the Tang sword and couldn't let it go. He picked up 2 Tang swords and chopped a few times and felt handy. Chapter 586 Tang sword and Japanese sword. Miyamoto, how does it feel? Antonov asked. Old man, this sword is very smooth to use, and it is about 1/3 heavier than Muramasa. The only drawback is that it is a bit light for me now. That's because the Tang sword uses a composite steel sandwich process. It uses the same 100-fold steel as the Japanese sword, but the difference is that the Japanese sword generally uses a single piece blade with a covered earth and burnt blade. Covering the blade with a covered earth and burnt blade is a local quenching technology. The basic method is to cover the different parts of the blade with different required hardness with the prepared mud, and then heat the sword to a specific temperature. When the red-hot blade enters the water, the parts with weaker temperature protection cool down quickly, while the temperature change of the parts with stronger temperature protection will not be very obvious, resulting in different hardness in different parts. In this way, the different cooling rates of different parts of the blade can be accurately controlled during quenching. The cooling rate is proportional to the hardness and inversely proportional to the toughness. It also causes the blade to bend, which is called return in Japan. The degree of bending and the bending stress points depend entirely on the experience of the swordsmith. Inexperienced people will cause the blade to crack, twist or even break. The tang sword uses a composite steel sandwiching process, which is to sandwich a piece of high carbon steel between two layers of low carbon steel. This technology embodies the basic idea of good steel is used on the blade in making high quality swords, and also makes the steel sword have excellent toughness and strength. Such a tang sword can directly chop and break armor without damaging the blade. In principle, the attack method of the tang sword is more like an axe, and the weight of the blade directly acts on the blade to cut the opponent. The Japanese sword relies on the curved blade and sharp blade to cut the opponent, or to cut the opponent. Antonov introduced the difference between the tang sword and the Japanese sword to Miyamoto in detail. So, the tang sword is more suitable for you. The one you hold in your hand is only for ordinary people. The tang sword customized for you naturally uses those rare materials in the universe, and the weight is several times heavier. At this time, Xia Xingchen came forward. Old man, I have a lot of precious materials. Now I'm on the aircraft we are riding. I need to trouble X to take me up, and I will go to get the materials. Now Xia Xingchen carries a huge backpack wherever he goes. There was actually a filling like sponge inside, which was used to conceal his presence. It was actually to cover up the fact that he was taking things out of the portable mecha space. Those who didn't know thought that he was always thoughtful and prepared these things in advance. Not long after, he brought a large bag of more than a dozen rare minerals. Some of these things were looted by Xia Xingchen from markets all over the country, and some were robbed from star pirates and the homes of those wealthy people. Antonov's eyes widened when he saw them. These were all good things. Old man, I want to make 2 tang swords for Miyamoto Kenichi and 2 daggers for you go with these materials. In addition, I want to make a weapon for Yanma. I wonder if it's enough. Xia Xingchen asked. I also want a tang sword. Is that okay? Yanma asked in a low voice. 3 tang swords and 2 daggers. These materials are more than enough. Then I'll trouble you, old man. After making these 5 weapons, the remaining materials will be given to you. You can tell me how much you need. Xia Xingchen knew that for these weapon masters, precious materials could attract their attention more than money. Okay, old man, I have a lot of good stocks, and I'm going to take them out for Miyamoto today. Come, I heard that Mr. Xia Xingchen brought a lot of fine wine. Let's study the materials of these weapons while drinking. This meal took more than 3 hours. After eating and drinking, the formula of the weapons was also determined. And Antonov also asked Miyamoto Kenichi and others to determine the weapons and styles to be made. Antonov took out a dirty and old personal terminal and quickly calculated the amount of materials for various ores. Antonov asked Miyamoto Kenichi to stay here and then sent him away. He asked Xia Xingchen and others to come back in 20 days. The materials for forging weapons were divided into several portions according to the size of the weapons. Then it was poured into a special heating vessel. This vessel is the most valuable thing in the entire magma furnace. It is made of a special metal with very good thermal conductivity and a high melting point, which can reach 3500 degrees Celsius. The most important thing is that this metal is an inert metal and will hardly react or stick to other metals. The heating vessel was placed into the boiling magma by the mechanical arm. There were exactly 5 weapons and 5 vessels. Anyway, the heating source of the magma furnace is endless magma. The longer the heating time, the fewer impurities there are, and the better the fusion between various metals and catalysts. Half a day later, a heating vessel containing dagger materials was taken down. The red-hot molten iron inside was poured into the mold that had been prepared long ago. After cooling and forming slightly, Kenichi Miyamoto clamped the red-hot weapon embryo onto the anvil with pliers and prepared to start hammering. Antonov had already told Kenichi Miyamoto that, in order to get a good weapon, even a small weapon like a dagger, it would have to be hammered tens of thousands of times. If it is the tang sword that Kenichi Miyamoto wants to make, it must be hammered on the hot chopping board more than 50,000 times. Old man, this is no problem. When I was practicing swordsmanship, I would tie a brick to the blade and swing it tens of thousands of times every day. Kenichi Miyamoto was full of confidence. Boy, don't be so confident. If you don't believe me, try it, Antonov said with a smile. Kenichi Miyamoto raised the hammer in his hand and was shocked. Haha, boy, this small space here is surrounded by magnetite, which has huge magnetism. The special magnetic field here can magnetize the weapon and make a slight change in the internal structure of the weapon, thereby improving the quality of the weapon. And under our feet is the magnetic pole of this planet. And the hammer in your hand is made of a special kind of magnetite. This kind of hammer made of magnetite looks like it weighs only a dozen kilograms, but in fact it weighs hundreds of kilograms. Kenichi Miyamoto was shocked again. This is actually the magnetic pole of the planet, which he never expected. But what he didn't expect was that this place was turned into a blacksmith's place by Antonov's ancestors. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 587, Thousands of Tempers. The strongest magnetic part of a magnet is called a magnetic pole. There is a magnetic field around a magnet, and the interaction between magnets is mediated by the magnetic field. No matter how small a magnet is, it has two magnetic poles. A magnet that can rotate freely in a horizontal plane always has one magnetic pole pointing to the south and the other pointing to the north. When it is stationary, the one pointing to the south is called the south pole, S pole, and the one pointing to the north is called the north pole, N pole. The magnetic poles of different magnets show the phenomenon that the same poles repel each other and the opposite poles attract each other. A planet like the Earth is a huge magnet, and it also has two poles. The positions of these two magnetic poles are very close to the south pole and the north pole of the Earth. People call the magnetic pole near the north pole of the Earth the geomagnetic south pole, and the other magnetic pole is called the geomagnetic north pole. The consequences of the reversal of the planet's magnetic poles are quite serious and will affect the entire natural world. Experts point out that the biggest disaster is a strong solar radiation. Usually, these cosmic rays are swallowed up by the Earth's magnetic field in space. However, once the Earth's magnetic field disappears during the reversal of the Earth's poles, these solar particle storms will hit the Earth's atmosphere, which will have a fatal impact on the Earth's climate and the fate of mankind. If this day really comes, some low-orbit artificial satellites will be completely exposed to the solar electromagnetic storm and will soon be completely destroyed. These changes will bring great danger to satellites and other spacecraft, because the Earth's magnetic field protects against high-energy radiation from outer space, just like putting on a layer of radiation protection clothing for satellites and other spacecraft. If the Earth's magnetic field changes, then the thousands of satellites and other spacecraft orbiting the Earth will lose the protection of the Earth's magnetic field, and they will be exposed to high-energy radiation from outer space without protection. In addition, many creatures that rely on the Earth's magnetic field for navigation, such as swallows, antelopes, whales, pigeons and magnetotactic bacteria, will lose their way. This furnace in the magnetic pole of the planet is a miracle in itself. The cold weapons forged here have an unparalleled charm. Dang, dang, dang. Miyamoto Kenichi waved the hammer in his hand and began to forge the embryo of the dagger in his hand. The landing point must be accurate. You must hit each position at least 9 times before you can move to one side. Use a constant speed and keep the rhythm so that the quality of the weapon can be uniform. The hammer must fall firmly, just like you use a knife and axe to chop your opponent. You can't just rely on gravity. The temperature of the embryo has dropped. Stop forging now, and forging will damage the structure of the embryo. Use tongs to place it 2 centimeters above the magma and heat it until it turns red. Then continue forging from the place you didn't forge just now. Repeat many times until the weapon turns completely golden after heating again, which means that the impurities are gone. Miyamoto Kenichi, if your right hand has no strength, then switch to your left arm. This is the best way for you to get familiar with your body and digest the snake blood power in your body. The whole smelting room was filled with Antonodons shouting and the sound of the hammer hitting the embryo. After 20 hours, Miyamoto Kenichi's arms were almost numb. During these 20 hours, he could only replenish his body's water when he was eating the embryo. Working for a day without drinking water in this environment of more than 40 degrees will kill you. When the embryo was put into the magma again for heating, the entire dagger embryo turned golden yellow after heating. Okay, the weapon forging process is over, ready for quenching. Antonov shouted. The first weapon made by Kenichi Miyamoto completed the forging process and began the quenching process. In general, quenching is a heat treatment process that heats steel to a temperature above the critical temperature AC3. Hypoeutectoid steel, or AC1, hypoeutectoid steel, keeps it warm for a period of time, makes it fully or partially austenitized, and then rapidly cools it to below Ms, or isothermalinium at a cooling rate greater than the critical cooling rate to transform it into martensite, or bainite. The solid solution treatment or heat treatment process with a rapid cooling process for materials such as aluminum alloys, copper alloys, titanium alloys, and tempered glass is usually called quenching. The purpose of quenching is to transform the supercooled austenite into martensite or bainite to obtain martensite or bainite structure, and then temper it at different temperatures to greatly improve the rigidity, hardness, wear resistance, fatigue strength and toughness of the steel, so as to meet the different use requirements of various mechanical parts and tools. Quenching can also be used to meet the special physical and chemical properties of certain special steels, such as ferromagnetism and corrosion resistance. In the traditional craftsmanship of the Japanese people to make Japanese swords, quenching is the so-called heat treatment, also known as water reduction. From the perspective of modern materials science, this step is a method for swordsmiths to control the carbon content of steel. The swordsmith hammers a heated Japanese steel into a flat sheet with a thickness of about 5 mm. It seems to be a simple process, but it is not. In order to control the carbon content of the steel, the number of heating times is strictly limited, and the hardness of Japanese steel will change as it continues to cool. Only experienced swordsmiths can accurately grasp the changes in the force of the hammer and refine the Japanese steel into a sheet of uniform thickness under a limited number of heating times. After the steel sheet is formed, the swordsmith will use water to rapidly cool it. It can peel off the excess carbon content of steel. It makes the blade have good elasticity and the blade edge is hard and not easy to chip. The knife maker must have a very accurate grasp of the temperature of the steel sheet and the amount of water used to obtain the material with the right carbon content. The special quenching process is also one of the important reasons why the quality of Japanese swords is very excellent. Because of this step, the technical requirements are very high. If there is a slight mistake, the blade may crack, which will cause fatal damage to the whole knife. In addition, even if it is barely formed, it may not produce beautiful patterns. In order to reduce mistakes, modern knife workers often use oil to perform the burning step. Miyamoto Kenichi once learned the quenching process in his family and succeeded in one go under the guidance of Antonov. The next step is to burn the blade. The blade of the knife is wrapped with special clay for the final quenching. The wrapped part forms a very hard layer because the temperature drops slowly. Through this step, the knife becomes harder and sharper. The thermal expansion and contraction cause the blade to bend and produce an arc, and a very strong martens crystal or martensite is formed on the surface of the knife. Chapter 588 successfully created. In short, the so-called Madden's crystal. Madden's crystal is a high-temperature crystal structure that is locked in the crystal grains due to rapid cooling, resulting in a metastable state. Therefore, there is a great internal tension between the crystals, resulting in a hard effect. This is the secret of the hard and durable blades of many fine props. Only the top craftsmen can master this process well. At this time, the knife has basically taken shape and needs to start more detailed deep processing and roughly cut the surface of the knife. At this time, check and trim small flaws, the shape of the knife body, etc. to enter the final adjustment stage. After the above steps are completed, the knife work is over. The remaining grinding, sheathing, decoration, handle rolling and other processes can be carried out slowly or asked to be completed by others. After a day of hard work, Kenichi Miyamoto felt that his body had changed a lot. If he was in physical condition before the injury, he would probably be exhausted in about 2 hours. But today, Miyamoto persisted. Whenever he felt that he couldn't even lift the hammer, as long as he changed his hands, the strength would immediately return to his body. Even his arm was strained many times during the forging process, but his body soon repaired itself. Miyamoto Kenichi knew that this was the credit of the snake blood. Moreover, through this whole day of exercise. Yes, exercise. This is real exercise. Miyamoto Kenichi's body's discomfort with huge power has almost completely disappeared. The next day, Miyamoto Kenichi began to forge the second dagger. Xia Xingchen and others left the Aleutian Island. Before leaving, Yugo bought more than a dozen daggers and hatchets in Antonov's store and handed them to Xia Xingchen. Xia Xingchen paid tens of millions of star coins for this. But it was worth it. The cold weapons handmade by Antonov and his two grandsons are all fine products. Yugo carried two on himself and gave a dagger to Yanma. Now even Xia Xingchen didn't know how many daggers this guy had. Xia Xingchen drove the aircraft back to Jiuli City. At this time, the inside and outside of Dr. He Yunlin's manor were already tense. Early in the morning, several uninvited guests came to visit. A dozen people got off several luxurious maglev RVs. The leader was 4 people, one of whom was a black woman dressed very coquettishly, and walked up to the door and knocked. Please tell Dr. He Yunlin that people from the chosen organization are here to visit. The servant did not dare to neglect it, and quickly informed Dr. He Yunlin and S-Class Mecha Master Popovich who were playing chess. Dr. He Yunlin frowned when he heard the news. He knew that these people were crazy and there was no benefit in getting involved with them. Just say that I'm not feeling well and don't want to see them. The servant agreed and went out to pass the message. However, before he could finish his words, the giant man who was nearly 3 meters tall suddenly attacked and grabbed the servant's neck. The servant struggled desperately, and the giant man threw his hand and the servant in his hand flew towards the door. The wooden retro door was smashed to pieces, and the servant's body was smashed into a meat paste. Master Python, what are you doing? Isn't this forcing He Yunlin to turn against us? We should have a good talk. VIP shook his head and said, we, the chosen ones, are all favored by God. We are God from now on. It is his honor that we chose He Yunlin to serve us. He actually dared to defy our will. There is only one way to go against God's will, death. Now is the era of us chosen ones. Ordinary humans are destined to be eliminated. He actually despises us so much. This is unforgivable. A low and harsh voice came from Python's throat. As the first combat force of the Chosen One organization Snake Division, this guy has a bad temper and kills people at every turn. Only their leader Snake is not afraid of him. When other members of the Chosen One organization saw this guy, they hid far away. They were afraid that he would suddenly kill people indiscriminately. Python walked forward and kicked open the door of Dr. He Yunlin's house. At this time, the staff on duty in the monitoring room of the manor sounded the alarm, and several security guards with real guns and nuclear bombs and more than a dozen security robots rushed over with guns and electric batons. Python rushed towards them. The bullets hit its body without causing any damage. It stretched out its arms at the same time, and its large hands like a cat-tail leaf fan instantly grabbed the heads of the 2 robots and slammed them together, turning the 2 robots into scrap metal in an instant. Seeing the rise of the Python, the VIPer and the VIPer standing behind the Python also attacked. The weapon in the VIPer's hand was a sickle. The handle of the sickle was 1.8 meters long, and the huge blade was about 80 centimeters long. The blade of the sickle was glowing green, and it was obviously poisoned. There was a connecting ring on the handle of the sickle. As long as the connecting ring was turned, the front 1 meter of the handle would separate, and a 1.5 meter long alloy iron chain was hidden in the handle. The weapon in the VIPer's hand was also an ancient weapon, a rope dart, which was one of the soft weapons made by tying a metal dart head to one end of a long rope, and was used as a hidden weapon. The commonly used rope dart specifications are that the dart head is 12 to 16 centimeters long, the rope is twice the height of the user or twice the length of the arms raised horizontally, and a small square of colored silk is tied to the ring as decoration. Rope darts can be thrown for long distance attacks, or short and for close range attacks. They are easy to carry, concealed, and can be attacked suddenly and unexpectedly. When using them, users use various parts of their body to do various movements of winding, retracting, and releasing, so that the dart can be used when the circular motion changes to linear motion. The movement methods are mainly winding, swinging, hitting, throwing, sweeping, swinging, retracting, releasing, carrying, and carrying. The dart head of the rope dart used by the VIP is the simplest 3-edged dart, and the dart blade is very sharp and coated with venom. The clothes on the VIP are very loose, and the rope dart is hidden in the sleeves. The unexpected attack on the opponent will catch the opponent off guard. The security guards and servants in Dr. He Yunlin's home were no match for the desperate criminals of the Chosen Society. Those whose skin was cut by the sickle lost their vital signs within a dozen seconds. Chapter 589, Disagreement. The two servants at the back were so scared when they saw this group of ferocious monsters that they peed their pants and turned around to run. However, they didn't run far before their necks were pinched from behind by two huge hands. Where is that old guy He Yunlin? Where are those two old guys Popovich and Lester? The python's voice seemed to come from the netherworld, and the two servants in his hands were scared out of their wits. One of them was scared to death on the spot. The python opened its mouth and bit the dead man. His mouth became bigger than a human head. This is the racial talent of snakes. With a click, the head of the dead servant was bitten off alive. The python's throat shrank, and the huge human head was swallowed by it. The python's abdomen also bulged. The slave in the python's other hand had collapsed at this time. His heartbeat was over 200 at this time. In front of him was a man-eating monster, eating a living person in front of him. This kind of stimulation is something that ordinary people cannot bear. Answer my question, otherwise, you will end up like him. The python stretched out its long and thin tongue and licked the blood at the corner of its mouth. I say, don't eat me. My master He Yunlin is staying in the glass greenhouse in the garden in the middle of the manor. Mr. Popovich is also there. They play chess and chat there every day. Master Lester went out yesterday and hasn't come back yet. I told you, don't kill him. But before the slave finished speaking, his neck was cruelly twisted by the python, and his body was thrown aside like garbage. The black-skinned woman Mamba walked up and licked her lips. Her tongue was thin and long, with a fork in front. Without that old guy Lester, we will save a lot of energy. We are really lucky. Woman's opinion, I would like to meet this so-called martial arts master. The python was very confident in his martial arts. At this time, the bulge in his abdomen had become flat, and the head he had just swallowed had been digested by stomach acid. At this time, Nina, Elisa, Brunswick, Rusfin and others heard the alarm, stopped training, picked up their weapons, and came to Dr. He Yunlin. The most miserable person was Keelan. The servant in charge of his training pressed the emergency stop button on the console and rushed out. The automatic ball machine stopped, but Keelan was hanging there with his forelegs up in the air. No matter how he resisted, no one paid attention to him. The people of the Chosen Ones rushed into the garden of Dr. He Yunlin's house and saw the glass greenhouse from a distance. Dr. He Yunlin stood in the middle of the crowd, wearing a belt and holding a special shotgun in his hand. The caliber of the shotgun was much larger than that of an ordinary shotgun. His belt was filled with many special bullets that looked like test tubes. Dr. He Yunlin was a master at treating poison injuries, and he must also be a master at using poison. The shotgun and bullets in his hand were all specially made. When he was young, he also carried weapons and wandered around the galaxy as a mercenary. Looking at the Chosen One coming from a distance, he raised his hand and fired 3 shots. The python saw that the person coming was not friendly, so he turned his body and dodged the 3 shots. Although he was confident in his own strength, he was not a reckless person. He still had a fear of unknown things. However, the 3 minions behind him were not so lucky. The bullets exploded instantly when they hit them, and the venom splashed on their bodies, instantly dissolving their body tissues. In just a dozen seconds, most of the bodies of these 3 people turned into pus, leaving only a corroded skeleton. At this time, the distance between the 2 sides was only a dozen meters, and both sides stood still. Mamba stepped forward at this time. Dr. He Yunlin, you are so brave that you dare to kill people from our chosen organization. We kindly invited you to come out and be the director of our laboratory, but you treated us like this. This matter is not over. However, if you can join us, I will help you to say a few good words in front of our Lord Snake. At that time, not only will you not be held responsible, but you will also enjoy endless wealth and glory. Bullshit, how can you invite me like this? Just give up on this idea. You killed my servant and still want to make peace. Even if I die here today, I will take you as a scapegoat. He Yunlin, will not offend anyone, but I will not let others bully me. Dr. He Yunlin gritted his teeth, his eyes full of anger. At this time, the VIP standing in the back row came over. Mamba, don't show off your womanly kindness anymore. Hurry up and capture this old guy, inject the god-making drug for genetic modification, and then he will have to do whatever we say. Yes, Lord VIP. Mamba nodded and agreed. The battle was about to start. Dr. He Yunlin took a step back and took out a bottle from his pocket and handed it to Rusvan beside him. Boy, distribute these medicines to everyone, 1 tablet each, and take it orally. This is an antidote made from the gall of the millet's anaconda. Take it, and all biochemical toxins will be ineffective against you within half an hour. Seeing the weapon in the hands of the VIP, Dr. He Yunlin immediately realized that it was poisonous, and from the color, it was snake venom. However, this is exactly what Dr. He Yunlin is good at. Dr. He Yunlin was very angry, and he and Brunswick and others picked up weapons and prepared to fight. The war was about to break out. Suddenly, the ground trembled, and not far behind the glass greenhouse, the ground opened to both sides, and a huge monster rose from it. This is a navy blue mecha, and the joints of the mecha are painted in gold, which looks majestic. This is the Magneto mecha, the S-class mecha Master Popovich's car. At this time, Popovich was sitting in the cockpit of the mecha. Since the alloy magnetic double ring was sent to the Temeral Type 4 transformation, the mecha held 2 mecha laser rifles in its hands, aiming the muzzles at the people of the Chosen Ones outside. At this time, the ground of the manor shook violently again. From the direction of the gate outside the manor, the road on the ground actually cracked, and 5 strange style pointed mechas drilled out of the ground. Chapter 590, Tensions. The height of these 5 mechas is only 4.6 meters. The head and body of the entire mecha are in a flat cone shape. The head of the mecha has many jagged structures, which looks like a shield machine for digging tunnels. The weapon system of the mecha is very simple. There are 2 small barrel-less laser rapid-fire cannons on both sides of the head of the mecha. This design makes the laser's firing range wider and the laser scattering area larger. The cost is that it affects the range, and can only guarantee shooting accuracy within 500 meters. However, this is a rapid-fire cannon, and the accuracy can be compensated by the firing rate. There are 2 lancet weapon systems on the chest of the mecha. Another weapon is that there are 12 macro anti-mecha missile launch nests on each forearm of the mecha. There are 2 light energy blades on both sides of the launch nest. It can be said that this is an excellent melee mecha. Januta Popovich, who was riding in the Magneto mecha, exclaimed, "The Januta is a special work mecha developed by the Europa Military Industrial Group. This mecha is a special combat mecha manufactured based on the Europa Military Industrial Group's underwater mecha Genu WF. Its biggest feature is its ability to operate underground. It is mainly used to secretly sneak behind enemy lines to search for enemies, collect intelligence, destroy underground facilities, and conduct underground detection. The Genu WF is the first underwater mecha developed by the Europa Military Industrial Group. The body of the mecha is equipped with a streamlined deformation mechanism that can reduce the resistance in the water to extend the sailing distance and save energy. It can also glide on the water like a jet boat. Since the Genu WF is a mecha designed for attacking ships and coastal bases, although the Gern has a very good speed in the water, it cannot be denied that its mobility is low, so it seems that there are not many ways to deal with it during the mecha battle. This design concept is also reflected in the weapons of the Genu WF. Its main weapons are shooting weapons for air and underwater combat. It does not carry combat weapons. In close combat, it can only use its body to collide, which often puts it in a very disadvantageous situation. From the appearance, the Januta is very similar to the original Genu WF, but in fact the upper body of the mecha has been redesigned. The surface of the Januta mecha is equipped with scaly motors and is covered with optical fiber networks for control and driving. The scaly motors arrayed with molecular order vibration element can produce consistent vibration phases, crushing and liquefying the surrounding soil and rocks, and generating thrust around the body. As an underground action mecha, the Genuta is equipped with underground radar and sound detectors in addition to the usual radar and optical detectors. In addition, in order to be able to change roads underground, deflection wings covered with scaly motors are also equipped everywhere. Compared with other mechas, the Genuta is not only less practical, but also more difficult to use. The underground radar used to detect external intelligence during underground voyage is affected by the change in the conductivity of the soil, and the accuracy is extremely low during long distance detection and scanning. In addition, sound detection cannot be used at the same time when the scaly motor is driving. Since the scaly motor cannot break through thick rock layers, sufficient geological surveys must be conducted before underground voyage. These complicated preparatory operations greatly reduce the practical value of the body. However, this mecha can still achieve good tactical effects when used for unexpected sneak attacks in certain areas. Only more than 5,000 Genutas have been produced in the entire galaxy, except for a small number of special forces equipped with this mecha. Its main users are terrorists in the galaxy. Due to the existence of Popovich, the chosen organization had to send mechas to participate in the operation. They did not seek to defeat Popovich, but with the existence of mechas, Popovich would be cautious. If Popovich used mechas to attack Python and others, then these 5 Genutas would attack Dr. He Yunlin and others. The mecha divisions driving these Genuta mechas are all C-level mecha divisions. It's not that C-class mecha masters are so worthless now and everywhere, but because these C-class mecha masters are born by the chosen organization with drugs. They choose some D-class mecha masters who have good skills, but have not made a breakthrough for a long time, and give them a special drug. This drug, called Wisdom Potion, is a modification of the Dream Angel drug made by the chosen organization. After taking this drug, the user's mental power will increase by 5 to 10 levels. And this improvement in mental power decays very slowly. On average, the mental power level will only drop by 1 level every 10 days. As long as the Wisdom Potion is replenished in time, the mental power level will return to its heyday. But this is a drug that is forced to grow. After 10 years, the user will develop resistance to the Wisdom Potion. Either the brain nerves will be broken, the brain will become a pile of paste and cause death, or the user will become a madman. The chosen organization did not tell these mecha masters under their command about this. After all, for them, it is enough for a weapon to be used for 10 years. For consumables, they don't need to know the truth at all. 5 Genuta mechas suddenly emerged from the ground outside the manor wall, and the weapons of the mechas were aimed at Dr. He Yunlin and others, which made Popovich's mechas afraid to use their weapons, and the scene suddenly fell into a stalemate. Although Popovich was confident that he could get rid of the Genuta mechas in front of him within 10 seconds, he could not prevent Dr. He Yunlin and others on the ground from being harmed. Although these people in the chosen organization were crazy, they were able to achieve their current abilities and status, and they still cherished their lives very much. A real madman could not live to such a high position. So the two sides fell into a weird stalemate, and whoever took action first could lead to the result of mutual destruction. Suddenly, a rumbling sonic boom appeared again in the sky in the distance, and this time the sonic boom was continuous and endless. 10 seconds later, more than 30 mechas surrounded Dr. He Yunlin's manor. 10 of them were flying wolf mechas, which were new non-human mechas that the Northern Empire began to equip last year. Chapter 591, Tensions. The other 20 mechas are pulse Direwolf mechas. This is a mecha modified on the basis of the design of the Direwolf mecha. It uses lighter and thinner armor, and the armor adopts a composite armor plate design, which reduces the total weight of the armor by 1/3. The back of the mecha is equipped with a turbine anti-gravity thruster and 4 medium-sized blue light thrusters. This enables the mecha to fight in space and in the atmosphere. This is also a new and cutting-edge mecha with excellent performance, and has only been in service for 2 or 3 years. In the entire Galactic Empire, only Nicholas's guards and the Second Fleet can be fully equipped with new mechas and warships. The huge airwaves raised by the 30 mechas set off gusts of wind inside and outside the manor, and all the mecha weapons were aimed at the 5 Genutas of the chosen organization. Looking at the paint and logos on these mechas, these are the mechas of the main fleet of the Northern Empire's military. The situation on the scene suddenly became more chaotic. 2 minutes later, Several turbomagnetic levitation transport helicopters landed in the open area of the manor. A large group of soldiers with live ammunition rushed out of the transport planes. Many soldiers simply took the opportunity to land directly on the battlefield and surrounded the people on the scene. The leader was a middle-aged man in his early 40s, wearing a full-body combat uniform, with 4 stars on his shoulder straps shining. The person who came was Admiral Vitus, the commander of the Second Fleet of the Northern Empire. "Put down your weapons," Admiral Vitus shouted. There was a microphone in his combat uniform, and a huge sound came from the audio equipment on the nearest few pulse dial of Mechas. But no one obeyed his words. Under the current situation, whoever puts down his weapons first will die first. The faces of several people in the chosen organization were not good. They knew that it would be difficult for them to complete the task today. If Dr. He Yunlin had any mistakes, let alone whether Snake could let them go, they would not be able to pass the level in front of them. If Dr. He Yunlin was hurt, even Popovich could kill them all without the army. At this time, Vi Peer stood up and said, "General, what unit are you from? What's your name?" It was the leader among the people in the Snake Division. Although the Python had a higher status in the Snake Division, it was just a killing machine. If it was allowed to negotiate with the military, things would only get worse. The Second Fleet of the Northern Empire, Vitus. Hearing this name, and seeing the star on Vitus' shoulder, it was easy to guess that the person in front of him was the commander of the Second Fleet. Vi Peer felt bad immediately. It wanted to use the reputation of the chosen organization to intimidate the newcomers. But it was obvious that the commander of a main fleet would not be afraid of them. Once the chosen organization dared to take action against Admiral Vitus, such an act would be equivalent to declaring war on the Northern Empire. Even the chosen organization could not afford such a price. "Admiral Vitus, we are from the Serpent Division of the chosen organization, and we are conducting an important experiment to improve the military strength of the Northern Empire. As far as I know, both His Majesty Nicholas and His Royal Highness Prince Regent Andrei have already contacted governments at all levels of the Northern Empire and asked them to fully cooperate with our actions. Do you want to go against His Majesty Nicholas's will?" Vi Peer's words were full of ill intentions. Everyone knew that Nicholas was very suspicious. If someone took advantage of the situation and these words reached Nicholas' ears, it would be a fatal crime. Admiral Vitus sneered in his heart. The Vi Peer opposite was a typical example of using chicken feathers as a token of authority. Emperor Nicholas's true attitude towards the chosen organization was known only to less than 10 people, including Regent Andrei, Minister of the Interior of the Northern Empire Chekhov, and Yuri, who had just been promoted to Minister of the Military Intelligence Department of the Northern Empire, as well as the commanders of the 4 major fleets of the Northern Empire. Admiral Denisov, Commander of the Northern First Fleet. Admiral Vitus, Commander of the Northern Second Fleet. Admiral Sasha, Commander of the Northern Third Fleet. Admiral Nelek, Commander of the Northern Fourth Fleet, and the Chief of the General Staff of the Northern Empire. Admiral Berbatov. Nicholas's true attitude towards the chosen organization was actually to guard against and use it. On the surface, Emperor Nicholas treated the chosen organization like a guest of honor, but in fact, it was to paralyze them. Nicholas wanted to use the genetic technology in the hands of the chosen organization to create a large number of dead soldiers for the Northern Empire in a short period of time, and once the war started, the chosen organization would be the best cannon fodder. Therefore, on the surface, Nicholas' attitude towards the chosen organization was support and indulgence. He asked governments at all levels of the Northern Empire and local garrisons to fully cooperate with the chosen organization. This is done to paralyze the chosen organization, and on the other hand, it is also an assessment of the governments at all levels under his command. Those officials who took chicken feathers as a token of authority and failed to see the situation and licked the chosen organization have been put on Nicholas' blacklist. I don't know what the chosen is. I haven't received any notice or order. Besides, we are the main fleet, directly under His Majesty Nicholas. Without His Majesty's order, other local governments and garrisons can't control us. I only know that you people broke into private houses, killed innocent people, and privately used military mechas to destroy public facilities. If you know what's good for you, you should quickly lay down your weapons and accept investigation. Vitus said righteously. After hearing this, Python was furious and wanted to rush up and fight. VIP hugged him tightly. Master Python, you can't act on impulse. You will ruin the organization's big things. Python's face was as hen, but he finally calmed down a little, and a pair of snake eyes stared at Admiral Vitus fiercely. Admiral Vitus, what do you mean? Are you going to go to war with our chosen organization? Do you know how serious the consequences will be? Or can you and the Northern Empire afford such a price? Faced with the threat of the VIP, Admiral Vitus was also angry. This was a naked threat. In the entire Northern Empire, except for Nicholas, no one dared to talk to him like this. Not even Andre dared to talk to him like this. You, the chosen organization, dare to threaten the Northern Empire. Let's see if His Majesty Nicholas will be frightened by your threat. And I tell you, your actions today have not only offended the Northern Empire, but also the Mecha Knights Templar and the Galactic Physician Association. You are too arrogant. It seems that someone needs to help you calm down, Vitus said coldly. Chapter 592, each taking a step back. VIP was silent. He knew very well that Vitus was not just talking. The bad temper of Emperor Nicholas was no secret among the high officials of the Northern Empire and the major interest groups. His Majesty the Emperor really didn't take threats. And the Galaxy Medical Association and the Mecha Knights Temple that Vitus mentioned were even more difficult to provoke. The Galaxy Medical Association was founded in 2096 AD, and it has a history of more than 1,000 years. This is an organization that manages and helps doctors in the entire galaxy. Doctors who can join this organization are famous doctors who have considerable skills and say in a certain field of the medical community. There are also ordinary doctors who have a very high reputation among the people and outstanding medical ethics. The headquarters of the Galaxy Medical Association is located in Huacho Star, Yaowang Star region, in the eastern administrative region of the Galactic Empire. Here, they have a huge medical training center and laboratory, as well as the largest medicinal material base in the universe. The association regularly invites doctors from various fields to train doctors in the entire galaxy. For those difficult and complicated diseases, you can use the association's network to let excellent doctors from the entire galaxy help you diagnose and treat them together. The internal communication platform of the Galaxy Doctors Association can also buy various precious medicines, pharmaceutical formulas and various second-hand medical devices. In addition, the most important function of the Galaxy Empire Doctors Association is to safeguard the legitimate rights and interests of doctors. No matter where in the galaxy, once the legitimate rights and personal safety of doctors who join the association are threatened, someone will come forward to uphold justice. Everyone will get sick, and almost every famous doctor of the Galaxy Doctors Association has saved several big men. The favors owed by these big men are very useful. Besides, these big men are very cherishing their lives, and they will do everything possible to curry favor with these famous doctors. As long as these doctors open their mouths, the dignitaries behind them will do their best to help the doctors get justice. Therefore, the power of the Galaxy Empire Doctors Association is very large. The Mecha Knight Temple is an even more terrible organization. It is an organization of S-Class Mecha Masters. All A-Class Mecha Masters have reached the level of S-Class Mecha Masters and must pass the assessment of the Mecha Knight Temple to become a true S-Class Mecha Master. And every S-Class Mecha Master is a terrible force, so the Mecha Knight Temple is also an organization that manages and restrains S-Class Mecha Masters. Without a legitimate reason, if an S-Class Mecha Master attacks other non-S-Class Mecha Masters and ordinary people, he will be sanctioned and hunted down by the Mecha Knight's Temple. Of course, in the eyes of many forces, S-Class Mecha Masters are more attractive than Tang Seng's flesh. So these forces will try every means to coerce S-Class Mecha Masters to work for them. In order to avoid such a thing from happening, the temple has set a rule that once such a thing happens, all S-Class Mecha Masters have an obligation to attack this force and kill it. Just like what the chosen organization is doing now, this is a serious provocation. If the army of the Northern Empire did not appear here, they would have abducted Dr. He Yunlin and killed other witnesses, and nothing would have happened. But now things are obviously out of control. Admiral Vitus, since you are here today, I will give you a face. Our people will withdraw, and we will just let this one go. How about it? The heart of the VIP has already retreated. You killed so many people, and you want to leave. Admiral Vitus is not a person who is easy to talk to, and he will not give in. General, we should be content. At worst, we can die together, but you must be prepared to bear the wrath of our chosen organization. Vitus was also desperate. Admiral Vitus knew that these people were crazy. They kept their words. Once they were pushed into a corner, they would do anything. By then, Dr. He Yunlin would not be able to save them, and he would have offended the chosen organization for nothing. Now he was in a dilemma. At this time, Dr. He Yunlin spoke up. General Vitus, let them go. I will not hold them responsible for the time being. We will settle the accounts later. Dr. He Yunlin gave Admiral Vitus a way out, and General Vitus certainly could not waste it. You can go away, but we have confiscated these mechas. It is a serious violation of the law to use military mechas without the approval of the military. I hope you can cooperate with our work. General Vitus said coldly. Okay, General, I hope you keep your word. Let's go. Vitus threw down a harsh word and turned away. The other members of the chosen organization left cautiously while on guard. They walked out of the manor and boarded the maglev cars. When the maglev cars had gone far away, the drivers of several Januta mechas climbed out of the mecha cabins, boarded a maglev car, and drove away. Dr. He Yunlin then put the special shotgun in his hand behind his back, clasped his fists and bowed. Thank you General Vitus for helping me to uphold justice. I owe you a favor. Vitus quickly returned the greeting. You are too polite old sir. I came here to visit you, Popovich and Master Lester, and I encountered this incident by chance. As a soldier, I can't just watch you being kidnapped by those lunatics. It is a duty to protect the citizens of the Empire. General, this is not a place to talk. Please go to the lounge of the villa behind to rest. I need to count the casualties and deal with the aftermath first. Dr. He Yunlin looked dejected at this time. Although the dead were all servants, he was a doctor who watched people die in front of him. You can imagine how he felt. Old sir, I'm sorry for the loss. If you need any help, please let me know. Vitus said. Thank you, General. Come here, listen to my orders. Leave 4 teams behind. 2 teams are responsible for guarding, and 2 teams help the old gentleman clean up the ruins. Admiral Vitus issued an order. 4 teams of Pulse Diaralf mechas stayed here, and the other mechas went to the landing ship of the Second Fleet at the seaside. A few hours later, the losses were counted. The defense system of the entire villa was destroyed, and 18 servants and security personnel were killed. He Yunlin was so angry that he cursed. Chapter 593, Recruitment Failed. Just as they were counting the losses, Master Lester and Xia Xingchen and others rushed back to the villa. Carlos informed Xia Xingchen as soon as the villa was attacked. Xia Xingchen personally piloted the aircraft and used the fastest speed, but was still a step too late. The miserable scene in front of them shocked Xia Xingchen and others, especially Lester. He was furious. These beasts, I must kill them. These servants were the common servants of these 3 people, and they had a good relationship with Lester, so he was very upset. Xia Xingchen stopped him, his face full of clouds. 3 elders, this matter cannot end like this. This revenge must be avenged. Please give me a few days. I want to find out where their base is and uproot these people. What's more, we haven't avenged Kenichi Miyamoto yet. Xingchen, I'm afraid they will run away. Lester muttered. Don't worry, old man. Carlos is a top hacker. He has hacked into the navigation system of those people's spaceships. No matter where they go, they can't escape Carlos's heart. Xia Xingchen smiled faintly and glanced at Carlos. Carlos also nodded slightly. This little thing, without Xia Xingchen's arrangement, he had already done it. Xia Xingchen looked around and continued. In addition, 3 old men, please keep our revenge secret from Admiral Vitus. If we take revenge, the blame will probably be put on the head of the Second Fleet of the Northern Empire. After all, this matter has a great impact. It is not in the interests of the Northern Empire to make enemies with the chosen organization now, so they will definitely find ways to stop us. Everyone quickly agreed on the revenge plan. Xia Xingchen and others continued to devote themselves to intensive training. But at this time, people found that Keela was already hanging there and dying. Dr. He Yunlin, Master Popovich and Master Lester came to the reception room. There were 4 people in the reception room at this time. Admiral Lester, Chief of Staff Shevchuk, Major General Kirilenko of the Mecha unit and a colonel in combat uniform. Admiral Vitus personally introduced these 3 people to Popovich. Dr. He Yunlin and these 3 people were all recruited by Vitus himself, and Popovich was the main target. It was not entirely accidental that Vitus appeared here, but because the Second Fleet left 2 reconnaissance teams here, ambushing not far from the manor. Any movement in the manor could not be hidden from Vitus' eyes. When the chosen organization broke into the manor, it was reported to Admiral Vitus at the first time. 3 elders. To be honest, I came here this time to ask the 3 elders to come out to help me. I'm sincere. As long as you come out to help me, you can set any conditions. Admiral Vitus said earnestly. The 3 people looked embarrassed and did not speak. Vitus helped them out this time and visited them in person. This sincerity was indeed hard to refuse. However, the 3 of them did not want to come out. They all knew that joining the Northern Empire might seem glamorous on the outside, but in fact, it was a big pit, a huge pit. Once you get in, don't even think about getting out. Popovich said, we can feel the general's sincerity, and we are very grateful for the general's help, but we 3 old guys are tired. We will provide some help to the general and the Second Fleet to the best of our ability. As for coming out, forget it. We are used to being idle, and our old arms and legs can't stand the tossing. 3 old men, you just need to go to Terramal to help me take charge. The reputation of the 3 old men is there. For other things, you don't have to do anything. Vitus was slightly startled and tried to keep his tone sincere. General Vitus, I wonder if you have ever considered that your Northern Empire Second Fleet is just a main fleet. The Northern Empire has 4 fleets, and the Galactic Empire has 7 fleets. There are no S-class mecha divisions in these fleets now. If I join the Second Fleet, have you ever considered the chain reaction it will cause? Also, if I join the Second Fleet, do you think the Mecha Knights Templar will remain indifferent? How will you end up being the target of public criticism? Popovich thought for a while and spoke. Admiral Vitus felt as if a large basin of cold water was poured over his head. His desire for talent made him ignore this very obvious problem. This is like the nuclear weapons in the hands of mankind before entering the space age, which were only in the hands of a few of the most powerful countries in the world. If every country, even a small country, has nuclear weapons, it would be a disaster. And an S-class mecha division like Popovich is equivalent to a nuclear weapon. Even on the battlefield, it is more powerful than a nuclear weapon. As for Dr. He and Lester, whether they officially join the Northern Empire or not, the help they can provide to you is the same. After all, they can't go to the battlefield in person. So, General, please let us retire in peace. Popovich shut down all the reasons of Admiral Vitus. In that case, I won't force it, but I'm worried that the people of the chosen organization will not give up so easily. The next time they come back, it will be a thunderbolt that is as fast as lightning, so that they can avoid our assistance to you. I sincerely invite the 3 old gentlemen to stay in Terramal for a few days. You can even stay on my flagship, the Ice Goddess, a heavy space carrier for some time. After a year or so, when the storm has passed and the defense facilities of the manor have been rebuilt, you 3 can come back. How about it? Vitus's calculations were very loud, using the terrifying chosen organization to intimidate the 3 of them. As long as the 3 of them arrived in Terramal, Vitus decided to treat them as honored guests, appeal to reason, and appeal to emotion. It was estimated that in less than half a year, the war would break out. By then, even if the 3 of them wanted to leave, they would not be able to save face. At this time, Dr. He Yunlin spoke. General, as I said before, we appreciate your kindness, but we don't want to go to Terramal for the time being. We will take a trip in the Bakel Starfield to relax. As long as the 3 of us are together, the chosen organization will not be able to do anything to us. Besides, the 3 of us old guys still have some power. We will not let this matter go. We will definitely report this matter to the Galactic Medical Association and the Mecha Knights Templar. The chosen organization is doomed. Vitus was silent. He really didn't know what to say. The atmosphere in the room suddenly became awkward. General, we owe you a favor for this matter after all. Let me provide you with 200 sets of special antidotes and 10 newest biochemical weapons detoxification formulas. In addition, you can find a few martial arts masters and mecha masters, and Lester and Popovich can give them special training for a period of time. What do you think? Hyunlin proposed his plan, which made Vitus' eyes light up. This is definitely a big deal. Human biochemical weapons have been developing for thousands of years, but the production of detoxification drugs for biochemical poisons has always lagged behind. I don't know how many people can be treated by Dr. Hyunlin's antidote formula. And the guidance of Popovich, an S-level mecha master, and Lester, a martial arts master, is what countless mecha masters and warriors dream of. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 594 Difficulty. Vitus was afraid that the three old men would go back on their word, so he struck while the iron was hot and immediately ordered Major General Kirilenko and the Colonel, Colonel Socrates, the Commander-in-Chief of the Infantry of the Second Fleet, to select the 4 best mecha divisions and 4 best infantrymen from their subordinates. Together with the 2 of them, these 10 people could be said to be the strongest fighting force of the Second Fleet of the Northern Empire. As for how Lester and Popovich trained these soldiers, Xia Xingchen and the others didn't know. Vitus was also very interested in Xia Xingchen and others at the beginning, and he also asked someone to investigate them, but under Carlos's operation, the identities of Xia Xingchen and others were perfectly covered up. Because Xia Xingchen was too young, Vitus soon lost interest in them. At this time, in the furnace underground on the Aleutian Island, Miyamoto Kenichi had reached a critical moment in the forging of 2 weapons. The material formula of the Tangdeo was different from the 2 daggers he had made before. This made the difficulty of forging increase exponentially. Miyamoto Kenichi forged for more than 10 days before he forged several embryos of the Tangdeo. But he encountered trouble when he took the next step, which was the process of clamping steel. Clamped steel is a method of combining the characteristics of different steels to achieve a balance between the performance of 2 or more steels. When this method is used in knife making, the materials generally used are steel with lower hardness and better toughness on both sides, and steel with higher hardness is used in the middle blade part. This ensures that the blade has higher hardness, while the blade as a whole has higher toughness. Many good knives are made using the steel clad process. The purpose of doing so is to take the toughness of iron and the hardness of steel, while excluding the softness of iron and the brittleness of steel. Good steel should be used on the blade. This kind of knife is very sharp and not easy to break when used. In addition, the knife is easier to sharpen because there is only a line of steel in the middle and the 2 sides are iron, so it is much easier to sharpen the knife. Chinese craftsmen on the earth have applied the process of clamped steel to the creation of tang knives for thousands of years. However, although the blade formula used by Master Antonov is not pure steel now, the process is the same. Kenichi Miyamoto needs to clamp the 3 forged blades together, heat them in the magma furnace, and then forge them tens of thousands of times until the 3 blades are perfectly fused together. However, it may be because the performance of these 3 blades is very good. When the 3 blades are stacked together, the temperature of the furnace is difficult to refine them. In the special heating vessel in the magma furnace, after heating for 3 days and 3 nights, the blade still showed no signs of being burned red. Helpless Kenichi Miyamoto had to ask Master Antonov for help. Master, please help me see how I can make this blade red. I guess it may be that the material is too good. Now I can't make it red anyway. What if I use other furnaces to increase the temperature? Miyamoto's suggestion is based on the conventional method. If the temperature is not enough, then heat it. Anyway, many furnaces now, such as the reactor of the material factory system, can reach a temperature of 3500 degrees Celsius, which can melt 99% of the metals and alloys in the Milky Way. Antonov thought for a moment. If the temperature of the furnace is raised, the physical properties of the 2 outer layers of the blade blank will change. This will greatly affect the quality of the blade. Although they will still be good blades, the quality of the blade is much worse than our target. Old man, is there no other way? Miyamoto Kenichi frowned and said, Miyamoto Kenichi, have you heard of the story of Ganjiang and Moi? Antonov suddenly said, Master, please give me some advice. Miyamoto Kenichi was slightly startled. The story of Ganjiang and Moi was too long ago for him. Antonov sat on the ground, picked up the wine pot, and took a big sip of vodka, and said, Ganjiang, a Wu nationality in the spring and autumn period in the history of the Chinese nation on earth, was the most famous blacksmith in the Chu state. The swords he made were extremely sharp. King Helu of Wu asked Ganjiang to forge two famous swords for him. Ganjiang and Moi were a husband and wife team for sword forging. Ganjiang first collected high quality iron and copper ores everywhere, and when the sun and the moon shone on the earth, he started smelting in the furnace. The strange thing was that after 3 months, the metal in the furnace could not be melted into liquid. Ganjiang could not figure out the reason and could only worry. Moi asked Ganjiang, to make the divine objects combine, human energy is needed. When you make swords, is it because you can't get the catalysis of people that you can't make them? Ganjiang recalled, my teacher used to make swords. Once, the copper and iron in the furnace could not melt each other. The couple jumped into the furnace together, and the sword was made. From then on, their descendants mined and smelted, and they all wore mourning clothes before they dared to forge on the mountain. Is this the reason why I can't make a sword now? After hearing this, Moise said, the master knew to sacrifice his life to make a sword, so what's the difficulty for us? So Ganjiang and his wife cut their hair and nails and threw them into the furnace. They also sent 300 boys and girls to load charcoal into the furnace, blow wind and fire, and the copper and iron melted and made into a precious sword. The two swords are divided into yin and yang. The yang sword is named Ganjiang and the yin sword is named Moi. Ganjiang hid the yang sword and only gave the yin sword. Helu regarded it as a treasure and was very happy. You mean, I also added something to it? Miyamoto was very smart and understood it at a glance. Antonov shook his head. This story illustrates two problems. First, Ganjiang added human body tissue to the sword when he was forging it. Human body tissues contain a lot of phosphorus and organic matter, which become a catalyst. In addition, Ganjiang asked boys and girls to blow air into the furnace, which allowed the oxygen in the air to come into more complete contact with the fuel, thus raising the temperature of the furnace. I think you can learn from this method. Master Antonov told him the story of Ganjiang and Moi, two sword making masters on earth. Miyamoto Kenichi suddenly realized, Master, I understand, but I need help. Miyamoto Kenichi said. Master Antonov smiled and nodded. Ruzi is teachable. Then, Antonov grabbed an alloy rope on the wall and pulled it. The rope came out of an alloy tube inserted into the cave wall. The other end of the rope was on the platform, connected to a metal bell. After shaking the bell, not long after, Axe and Nifo walked down from above. Chapter 595, Sword. Kenichi Miyamoto is going to use the ancient method to forge the weapon, and use flesh and blood to refine the blade. Nifu, you stay here, and help Miyamoto stabilize the blade with pliers. Axe, you go to the tavern, and prepare a large amount of fresh meat, dairy products and other foods that can replenish human blood, and then boil a large pot of fish soup here. You go and move all the pots and pans for cooking meat. Also, Nifu, go and prepare the blower. Yes, Grandpa. The two of them agreed, and went to prepare. More than an hour later, Kenichi Miyamoto had a full meal, and was ready to start work. There was a hidden pipe at the top of the cave. Nifu walked over and connected to the pipe with a special hose. The front end of the hose was an air outlet as big as an apple. The air outlet was placed above the magma furnace and aimed at the bottom of the heating vessel. Axe on the side opened the valve of the pipe, and the hose was quickly filled with gas. A large amount of fresh air was transported from the ground through blowers and pipes to the magma furnace more than 100 meters underground. White flames ignited on the outside of the furnace. The remote sensing thermometer next to it showed that the temperature in the heating vessel had reached 1600 degrees Celsius. However, half an hour later, the properties of the knife blank had not changed. Antonov looked at Kenichi Miyamoto. Boy, are you ready? Kenichi Miyamoto nodded, and X went to get a 1.5 meter long, 30 centimeter wide, and 20 centimeter deep stainless steel trough, and placed it on the stone platform next to the anvil. Kenichi Miyamoto stretched out his left hand, picked up the sharp dagger he had made a few days ago in his right hand, aimed it at the artery of his left hand and cut it. Blood gushed out, dripping down Miyamoto's wrist into the stainless steel trough below. Kenichi Miyamoto kept urging his internal force to force the blood out of his body. Because his body was transformed by the blood of the Meletsi anaconda, his body now has a strong healing ability. Even if the artery is cut, even if it is not treated, the bleeding will stop on its own after just a dozen seconds. Time passed by minute, and at this time Miyamoto had released nearly 3 kilograms of blood. For ordinary people, this amount of bleeding is enough to be fatal. Miyamoto only realized at this time that his head seemed a little dizzy, which was a sign of excessive blood loss. He quickly stopped urging blood outward. Soon the bleeding stopped. Miyamoto Kenichi did not bandage the wound, but sat aside and ate the barbecue and fresh milk that Axe had just prepared. Because he did not know how much blood he would need, he had to seize every moment to recover. After the food was eaten, Miyamoto Kenichi's powerful hematopoietic function took effect. In just half an hour, his face gradually recovered from the pale color. Neifu used pliers to pick up the 3 layers of the knife blank stacked together and put it into the stainless steel tank filled with blood on the ground. Because the temperature of the knife blank itself was very high, the water in the blood evaporated with a sizzle. The energy and other substances contained in the blood were absorbed by the blade, and at this moment, the blood in the stainless steel tank was instantly reduced by half. Neifu put the knife blank soaked in blood into the heating dish. Soon, the knife blank slowly turned red with a color visible to the naked eye. Success. Miyamoto Kenichi was very surprised. It seemed that the blood was not shed in vain. At this time, Antonov reminded from the side, "It's done. Forge it quickly." Upon hearing this, Neifu clamped the red-hot knife blank onto the anvil, and Miyamoto Kenichi raised the hammer and started hammering. After a few minutes, the red color on the knife blank began to fade. Neifu placed the knife blank directly on top of the lava, but the red color on the knife blank continued to fade. "Idiot, keep dipping it in blood," Antonov shouted, and Neifu suddenly realized. The knife blank dipped in blood was put into the heating vessel again, and soon it was red again, but at this time, the blood in the stainless steel tank had reached the bottom. Miyamoto Kenichi continued to forge. The red color faded again. At this time, the wound on Miyamoto Kenichi's wrist had healed, and he took out the dagger again and resolutely cut the artery on his left wrist. In this way, bleeding, heating, forging, eating, bleeding. Such days lasted for a full 10 days, and the 2 knives were finally forged successfully. The next step is to repair and polish the knives. For the rough and uneven places on the knife blank, use diamond sand to grind it carefully, and the blade of the knife also needs to be carefully polished with oilstone. The last step is to install the handle. The earliest material used by humans as a knife handle was enamel fur, which was wrapped around a stone knife to become a knife handle. After humans entered the Iron Age, wooden and bone knife handles were widely used because there were tools to process wood. Later, with the development of human technology, the materials of knife handles became more abundant. The handle material chosen by Kenichi Miyamoto is titanium alloy, because it is also a metal, but titanium alloy is very light and has better corrosion resistance than any metal material. It feels gentle and can be anodized or paralyzed. In addition to the handle, due to its good elasticity, most importantly, titanium alloy can transmit its internal force to the blade very well. The handle is wrapped with black Kevlar nylon to increase friction. The blades of the 2 knives are also black, emitting a faint black light. The position of the blade is white and very sharp, shining coldly against the background of the furnace fire. The blade of one of the knives flashes green light, while the blade of the other knife flashes blue light. This phenomenon is normal, because no knife in this world is exactly the same. When forging a knife, slight differences in the number of forgings and differences in quenching temperatures will cause slight differences in the appearance of the knife. Antonov took over the 2 knives and carefully inspected them. He mainly observed the details of the knives and repeatedly tapped the blade with his fingers, listening carefully to the sound coming from the knife. The sound was crisp and pleasant. A weapon maker like Antonov can judge whether the blade is uniform or defective just by listening to the sound of the sword. He can also judge the toughness, brittleness, and uniformity of the material of each part of the blade. Chapter 596, Killing the Kyang, and Beheading the Anaconda. Whether the material of a sword is uniform is very important for a weapon. Generally, the places where a sword breaks are those where the material is uneven. As for these two swords, Master Antonov's evaluation is perfect. Miyamoto, the quality of these two swords has reached the ranks of famous swords handed down from generation to generation. Now, it needs a name handed down from generation to generation. Miyamoto Kenichi picked up the sword with a green edge in his left hand and the long sword with a blue edge in his right hand. A feeling of blood connection emerged in Miyamoto Kenichi's heart. This is the soul of the sword. Miyamoto Kenichi was overjoyed. As a swordsman, he can feel the heart of the weapon. These two swords were bred by his blood and have souls. My two beloved Japanese swords were destroyed, and I had a close call with death, all thanks to the chosen organization. I must offer their blood as a sacrifice. Aren't you serpent monsters? Then, my two swords will be called Killing the Snake and Slashing the Anaconda. What a good name. I will personally engrave the name on the sword and make the scabbard. Antonov was very excited. Being able to participate in making two such legendary weapons is the most exciting thing for a swordsmith. Generally, swordsmiths will engrave their names, residences, and production dates on the blade stem at the end of making the sword. Strictly speaking, the inscription is cut or engraved on the blade stem by a sharp weapon. Generally, the name of the swordsmith and his residence are engraved on the surface. The outer side is the surface when wearing the sword, and the production date and the name of the sword holder are engraved on the inner side, but there are many exceptions. However, since the materials of these two knives are too hard, Antonov used a laser engraver to engrave the names of the two long swords on the Ruai cloud pattern wrist guard of the Tang sword. The material of this wrist guard is titanium alloy. Although it is also hard, it is still much softer than the blade itself. The Tang sword with a green blade was engraved with the word Kilda, and the Tang sword with a blue blade was engraved with the word Kudha. The last step is to match the two sharp blades with two scabbards. Although human history has continued for thousands of years, the material of the scabbard has basically not changed. The material Antonov chose for the scabbard of Miyamoto Kenichi is leather. This is a very traditional material for making scabbards, and it is still one of the best choices for sheath materials. Leather can be made into many beautiful things, and one of its main advantages is beauty. Leather is a well-known special material that is pleasing to the eye in terms of appearance, feel and taste. This material has excellent durability and leaves a representative image of cowboys. Another advantage of the leather scabbard is that it is very quiet when it is pulled out and inserted into the scabbard. Originally, he planned to contribute his treasured shark skin, which is a very precious scabbard material on Earth, but the large piece of Amazonian anaconda skin that Xia Xingchen took out before leaving made Antonov feel like he had found a treasure. It took him 5 days to soften the Amazonian anaconda skin with a potion. The scabbard made of shiny black python skin is integrated with a very colorful handle. Miyamoto, how is your body now? Have you recovered? Antonov estimated in his mind that it had been a week since the end of the forging session, and the wound on Miyamoto's wrist should have healed. Miyamoto Kenichi carefully felt his body. Old man, I'm completely fine, and I found that I can control the power of my body. That's natural. After constantly forging the knife blank these days, your body has begun to get used to this power. Let's go and try the knife. I, an old man, will teach you the moves myself. Antonov took the bottle of wine and took a sip, saying with a smile. Several people climbed up the stairs and came to the big platform. There was a cave on the big platform. When they walked in, they suddenly saw a bright view. This was an underground space of more than 200 square meters and more than 5 meters high. The ground was covered with alloy steel plates. There were many weapon racks under the walls of the space. This was where Antonov practiced. Miyamoto Kenichi drew out two Tang swords, with the left hand killing the Qyu and the right hand killing the Anaconda. He flashed and used a set of commonly used sword techniques. Each of these two Tang swords weighed nearly 10 kilograms, and the swords were wielded by Miyamoto. However, due to his greatly improved strength, the two swords seemed to have no weight in his hands. Miyamoto Kenichi came to Antonov's practice room and began to familiarize himself with his two new swords. Half an hour later, Miyamoto Kenichi put the swords back into the sheath. "Miyamoto, how do you feel?" Antonov asked with concern, but looking at Miyamoto Kenichi's expression, he could already guess the result. Miyamoto Kenichi bowed deeply. "Old man, I have never used such a handy weapon. It fits my body very well. These two swords are like a part of my body, an extension of my body. And as my strength increases, now an ordinary sword is as powerful as the fighting skills I used before. If I encounter the monster that hurt me again, I'm now very confident that I can kill it. Okay, I will try your martial arts myself," Antonov said, then stood up, put the tin wine pot in his hand aside, and picked up two long swords from the weapon rack by the wall. These are two Cossack cavalry swords. In the history of the earth, the Cossack knights wearing black cloaks and charging with Cossack cavalry swords were called eagles of the Don River Basin. The Cossack cavalry swords they wielded, which frightened their opponents, were called eagle claws. The traditional Cossack cavalry sword is about 90 centimeters long and is made of fine steel smelted from Central Asian iron ore. The thick back and wide blade, the oak leaf shaped tip, the deep arc blood groove that occupies 2/3 of the overall width. The blade has a beautiful but fierce arc, the copper clad handle like an eagle's head, and the center of gravity is backward. After the knife is sheathed, the overall simplicity makes people not take a second look. However, when the steel knife is unsheathed, anyone who swings it can easily cut down small trees and split wooden stakes with the chopping power brought by its own arc. This power is reflected in a popular saying among Cossack knights: "Chop off the opponent's head, like chopping vegetables in the field." When you jump on the horseback and wave the Cossack cavalry knife in the wind, you can experience the feeling of like an eagle spreading its wings and rushing towards its prey. Chapter 597 Antonov's Advice. Although Antonov is usually unkempt and always looks like he is hungover, his temperament changes when he uses the two swords. The small eyes, that are usually covered with eye mucus, are shining brightly. His strong aura makes Miyamoto Kenichi feel that this is a sharp knife in front of him. "Old man, I'm sorry," Miyamoto Kenichi shouted and raised his sword to chop. He knew that this was not the time to be humble. Since the old man in front of him had the strength to die together with the martial arts master Lester, he didn't need to be humble at all. He had to go all out to deal with this opponent. Two swords. Kiss aim. Two swords. Great collapse. Two swords. Firebird. After using the fighting skills, Miyamoto Kenichi found that the power of all his martial arts was more than doubled than before. This discovery made him ecstatic. However, Antonov on the opposite side looked calm, waving his Cossack cavalry sword to dissolve Kenichi Miyamoto's attacks one by one. Antonov's sword was shorter than Miyamoto's tang sword, and its quality was far inferior to the two-handed down swords, Shakuyu and Zanna. Kenichi Miyamoto also wanted to cut off the opponent's weapon. However, he found that it was not easy. Antonov's internal strength was very deep, and he used his internal strength to protect the two Cossack cavalry swords. On the other hand, the sword in Antonov's hand always chopped at the point where Kenichi Miyamoto's sword was not applied, completely avoiding the center of gravity of the sword, so that Kenichi Miyamoto's attack was resolved with very little force and cost. Miyamoto was secretly frightened, and Antonov suddenly shouted, "Boy, be careful." The double swords in his hands suddenly accelerated. At this moment, Kenichi Miyamoto was a little flustered. Antonov's speed was too fast, and each knife was aimed at the position that Kenichi Miyamoto had to save. As for combat skills, this thing is a double-edged sword, which needs time to charge. Antonov did not give him the opportunity to charge, so Miyamoto had to use ordinary attacks to fight back. The characteristic of Antonov's swordsmanship is speed. The whole person's body turned, and the two Cossack cavalry swords were swung, and the shadows of the swords could not be seen at all. Miyamoto Kenichi also swung his two swords, tired of parrying. Suddenly, a foot stretched out from the opponent's heavy sword shadows, and was stuck in his stomach. At this time, Miyamoto's two swords had been blocked by Antonov's two swords, and there was no way to parry or dodge. This kick really hit. Miyamoto Kenichi's body flew out, but in midair he swung his arms and stabilized his body with his two swords. He knew that Antonov was showing mercy. If he used all his strength, this kick could break Miyamoto's intestines. come again. Miyamoto shouted, raised his two swords, and rushed forward again. Not long after, he was hit in the ribs by Antonov's elbow. Miyamoto's sword slipped out of his hand, and he rested for a long time while holding his ribs before he could catch his breath. Miyamoto rushed forward again, but this time he was tripped by Antonov's sudden kick. An hour passed. Miyamoto was overturned more than a dozen times and hit dozens of times. At this time, he was exhausted. Antonov put the weapon in his hand back into the scabbard on the weapon rack. Miyamoto, what is the problem with your martial arts? Do you understand now? Antonov said with a smile, not even breathing. Yes, old man. Miyamoto Kenichi held the sword in one hand, knelt on the ground, and slowly stood up. Although he was very tired, his eyes were shining like the starry sky. Tell me. Antonov raised his eyebrows, showing a teachable expression. Old man, I was too focused on martial arts moves, so there was a problem in the connection between the martial arts moves. Miyamoto Kenichi said. Antonov nodded. Miyamoto Kenichi, you have a high level of comprehension. However, when it comes to swordsmanship, comprehension alone is not enough. You have a big problem now. In the past, your opponents were weaker than you, so you could use your sword skills to crush your opponents and kill them with one blow. When you meet an opponent who is slightly stronger than you, or is evenly matched with you, you can only rely on your hard work and try your luck. You Japanese warriors are all like this. But now, your level is different, and the opponents you meet are also different. For opponents of this level, the days of relying on one or two combat skills to kill your opponent are gone. Miyamoto, if you encounter an opponent with higher martial arts than you, it is wishful thinking to want to kill him with one blow. You must use smooth and flawless sword skills to deal with your opponent and look for flaws in your opponent's martial arts. Then consider killing him with one blow. Now, if the opponent suppresses you in a targeted manner like I did, you will be confused and don't know how to respond, let alone the ability to suppress the opponent. If you don't find a way to solve these problems and still stick to your traditional Japanese martial arts, then it will be difficult for you to improve. I have met many Japanese warriors, among whom there are several masters. Without exception, they have integrated other martial arts and discarded some of the dross in Japanese martial arts to reach that level. In addition, I said that Japanese martial arts are too dependent on weapons, and the method I just used to defeat you is what I want to teach you. I think you should understand. You must learn to use other parts of your body to attack the enemy. Well, I have taught you everything I should teach you. You can leave. Antonov said. Miyamoto Kenichi knelt on his knees and kowtowed to Antonov 3 times. Antonov accepted it with a smile on his face. Thank you for teaching me. For warriors like Miyamoto, there is no need to teach them one move at a time. As long as they are given a hint, they will naturally understand many things. The next morning, Miyamoto Kenichi said goodbye to Antonov, Axe and others, took the swords he made himself, the Killer Key and the Anaconda, and boarded the ground effect wing aircraft ferry that only came once a month, and returned to the mainland. Miyamoto hired a car on the mainland mountain and returned to Jiuli City. Although the journey was not peaceful, Miyamoto was now affected by the blood of the Miletsky Anaconda and had a chilling temperament from the bones, so those villains did not dare to attack him. Chapter 598 Miyamoto returns. Xia Xingchen and others were very happy about Miyamoto's return. At this time, their special training has come to an end, and the alloy magnetic double rings of Magneto's mecha have been processed and sent back from Terminal. According to Dr. Hyunlin, it has been 2 weeks since they were attacked, and the special training of the Second Fleet has also ended. Popovich used the excuse of going out to relax and sent all the dozen people away. Finally, the whole manor has returned to its former tranquility. Everyone gathered in the conference room of Dr. Hyunlin's laboratory. It is underground, very safe and hidden. At this time, several large screens on the wall have been occupied by various images and maps. It is now like an army's combat command center. Carlos, tell everyone about your reconnaissance results. Carlos stood up and walked to the main screen. The star map on the screen changed with his explanation. I hacked into the maglev cars of those chosen ones through the satellite positioning system and found their landing spacecraft. Then I hacked into their spacecraft again. Those people left Novakovo on the spacecraft that day. Their flying speed was not fast, and it took them 12 full days to reach their destination. It is here, located in the western part of the Baikal starfield, close to the Tunguska starfield in the Siberian starfield. Tunguska is a nature reserve and tourist destination. Originally, civilian spacecraft were not allowed to enter the planet's atmosphere, but this spacecraft just went straight into the atmosphere. Their spacecraft landed on the sea and then dived. Moreover, their navigation system uses military encrypted signals on satellites, which shows that they have an unusual relationship with the local garrison. Finally, the signal disappeared, and the location was Hull Island. I suspect they have a secret base on the island. There is no network on this island, connected to the outside world, so I can't hack in. I guess they use scheduled communication. Now I have controlled the central optical computer of the entire Tunguska Island. Once they contact the outside world, I can hack into the central optical computer of their secret base. In addition, I have investigated the satellite data of the past 20 years, and I found that there have been spacecraft secretly transporting supplies to the island over the years. I guess their base should be somewhere underground on the island. According to the data calculation and analysis on the computer, the most likely location of the base is the location of the abandoned airport on Hull Island. The location and photos of Hull Island appeared on the big screen, as well as the biological conditions on the island. The densely packed snakes made everyone's scalp tingle. Carlos then introduced the natural and geographical conditions of Hull Island to everyone. Xia Xingchen spoke. Everyone, tell us what you think. Xia Xingchen studied combat command in the military academy, so the commander's task fell on him without any hesitation. Popovich and others also said that the three old guys were just thugs, and everything was arranged by Xia Xingchen. Xingchen, just tell me your plan and we can brainstorm and help you improve it. I think this is more reasonable, Popovich said. Xia Xingchen nodded. My plan is that we will take the evil thought to land on Tunguska Island. Then we will send out the mecha to attack the underground base on the island. We will find a way to find the terminal of the monitoring system. Then Carlos will invade the central control optical computer of the base through the network terminal of the monitoring system. If there are self-destruct facilities and automatic defense systems in the base, Carlos will send them to hell. If there is no automatic defense system in the base, Carlos will find the vents of the ventilation system of the base through the internal database of the secret base. Xia Xingchen took a sip of tea and continued. Then we will infuse deadly poison gas into them through the ventilation system to suffocate them all, and others will prepare to clean up the fish that have escaped the net on the periphery. Finally, we will reward the base with a giant bomb to destroy the bodies. Because the natural environment of Hull Island is very harsh, we try not to stay on the island for a long time. If possible, we try not to enter the base to prevent the other party from jumping over the wall and detonating the base. Xia Xingchen's plan is already very complete, and all aspects have been taken into consideration. The faces of the three old men all showed admiration. Dr. He Yunlin nodded. Leave the poison gas to me. I have configured a super biochemical poison. No matter what kind of monsters they are, they will all be killed. As for the snakes on the island, you don't have to be afraid. I have the best antidote and snake repellent here. Baum also patted his chest and said, leave the bombs to me. It's the most exciting to set off fireworks underground. Xingchen, you and Carlos will need to modify my mecha. My mecha is mainly for fighting, and there are not enough ground attack weapons. Popovich said. Old man, try not to take action. Our mechas are powerful enough and have enough firepower. We can't be sure whether the other side has a large number of mecha troops. If the other side has mecha troops, then you can take action at that time. As for you three, our actions this time cannot guarantee that there will be no traces, and it is easy for people with ulterior motives to associate this matter with you. I'm afraid that you will be retaliated by the chosen organization at that time. I suggest that you three move away from here temporarily. Xia Xingchen said. Hahaha, Kit, you worry too much. As the saying goes, a cunning rabbit has 3 burrows, let alone us 3 old foxes. Don't worry, we have our own place to go to solve the problem of Hull Island. Popovich's space shuttle took off from Jiuli City. Xia Xingchen and others, Popovich, Dr. He Yunlin and Lester were all on the shuttle. In addition, the shuttle was also carrying Popovich's magneto-mecha and a large amount of medicines and biochemical agents. On the shuttle, Dr. He Yunlin joked that if the shuttle they were riding exploded in midair, about half of the lives on the entire Novikavo planet would die. Everyone's heads were full of black lines. They didn't think the doctor's cold joke was funny, but they felt a chill in their backs. After arriving at the Novikovsk space station, the mecha and biochemical agents were transferred to the small spacecraft Maleficent, and the others came to the Count Dracula. Chapter 599. Prepare for revenge. Popovich had always had an obsession, wanting Xia Xingchen to equip his magneto mech with ground attack weapons. However, when he arrived at the mech warehouse on the Count Dracula, he stopped talking. The mechas in front of him made the knowledgeable S-class mech master's eyes light up. With the existence of these mechas, he really didn't have to worry about anything. The Count Dracula and the Malevolence passed through a small wormhole and jumped to Tunguska in 3 days. This wormhole was a privately developed wormhole. To pass through the wormhole, you need to pay a high toll, and passing through the wormhole can only shorten the journey by half, which is a bit of a loss. In addition, in order to hide their tracks, the chosen organization did not go through the wormhole and flew back to Tunguska for 12 days. The Count Dracula and the Malevolent stayed on the very small Tunguska space station, which had less than 10,000 staff members and hundreds of garrisons. The berth of the space station could only accommodate 50 spacecraft. Bielsa took a landing permit and went to the command center of the local garrison on the space station to report and apply for entry into the atmosphere. Although this is a nature reserve, and private spacecraft and private space shuttles are prohibited from entering the atmosphere, there are always privileges in this world, especially in the Northern Empire. The electronic signature and seal of Admiral Vitus on the landing permit are very useful, and the command center immediately released it. This permit was specially asked by Popovich before Admiral Vitus left. The reason is that the 3 old guys want to relax everywhere. With this permit, their spacecraft can land on various planets in the Baikal starfield. At this moment, on the heavy space carrier Ice Goddess on Terramore, Major General Kirilenko and Colonel Socrates are reporting to Admiral Vitus about their special training on Novikavo these days. From the happy expressions on their faces, it can be seen that the two have gained a lot. At this time, the adjutant rushed into Vitus' office. This is the rule set by Vitus. If there is an urgent military situation, he allows his adjutant to break into the office directly to report the situation. Report to the commander, the electronic license you issued has been used. Once the license issued by the military is used, it will be fed back to the military's optical computer immediately to prevent someone from counterfeiting the license and falsely transmitting military orders. Oh, where? Vitus raised his eyebrows and asked. General, the license you issued to Mr. Popovich was used on Tunguska. The adjutant replied. Tunguska, the tourist attraction? Vitus immediately lost interest. It seemed that Popovich and his men were really going on a trip. Chief of Staff Shevchuk on the side smiled bitterly and said, General, I'm afraid this matter is not that simple. There may be trouble. What do you mean? Vitus raised his thick eyebrows. General, the military intelligence department of our fleet has begun to secretly investigate the chosen organization according to your order. We have just discovered that there is a secret base or stronghold of the chosen organization on Tunguska. I think they are definitely not going to Tunguska for tourism. They are going for revenge. Vitus was anxious immediately. We can't let them clash. Whether Popovich and his team win or lose, the final account will definitely be attributed to us. We must stop them. Send a message to the Tunguska fleet quickly and make sure to stop them. Yes, sir. The adjutant agreed and turned to leave. He wanted to issue an order, but was stopped by Shevchuk. Wait, we can't do this. Shevchuk's chief of staff Vitus said. Chief of staff, what is your reason? Vitus frowned and was a little confused. General Vitus, do you think that the hundreds of old Jaromay type mechas of the garrison can stop an angry S-class mecha division? The reason given by Chief of Staff Shevchuk was very powerful. Admiral Vitus sat down on the chair helplessly. Also, we stopped the actions of the chosen organization on Novikavo, and they already hate us. Do you think that, if we stop Popovich and his men from taking revenge on the chosen organization now, we can repair our relationship? The chief of staff continued. No, it would offend Popovich. Vitus said without much consideration. And the most important thing. General, there is a problem with the Tunguska garrison. We tracked down the whereabouts of those hot people in the chosen organization, but every time we tracked down Tunguska, the clues were cut off. I suspect that the people in the garrison and even the top leaders have been bribed by the chosen organization. If you give this order, it is equivalent to tipping off those people in the chosen organization. The chief of staff narrowed his eyes and continued. In other words, if you give the order, it is equivalent to sending Popovich and others into a trap. Beasts, scum. These people take the salary of the Northern Empire, but sell out the interests of the Empire for their own personal interests. They should be killed and not spared. Vitus slammed the table, and he was furious. Everyone in the room was silent, not daring to breathe. Vitus tore his hair with both hands. Although it looked indecent, it was his habit to think about problems. After a long time, he finally made up his mind. Kirilenko, Socrates, listen to my orders. You lead 10 medium-sized mecha cruisers and 5 large landing ships to Tunguska as soon as possible. When you get there, if you find that Popovich and his men have won, you will reveal your identities and help them uproot the base of the chosen organization on Tunguska and eradicate it completely. If they haven't done it yet or have failed, you will do it yourself and eliminate the chosen organization. In addition, notify the military court to accompany you and clean up those termites in the garrison together. The charge is collusion with terrorists. Yes, General. The two men saluted. Carlos commanded the robots to modify some of the cargo holds on the Evil Mind, and some supplies were transferred to the Count Dracula. There are now 6 mechas on board the Evil Mind, including Xia Xingchen's Revenge Knight mecha, Popovich's Magneto mecha, Nina's Thor's Wings mecha, Rusvan's Silver Demon mecha, Ilyssa's Left-Hand Demon mecha, and Colossus Modified Strike Ranger mecha. Chapter 600. Looking for snakes in the grass. This time, except for Captain Bielsa, Charlene and Julian, and Popovich's servants and butlers who stayed on the Count Dracula, everyone else went out. Carlos sat in the main driving seat in the cockpit and reminded the crew to keep their bodies fixed. The evil thought began to adjust its posture and descended into the atmosphere. 10 minutes later, the evil thought landed on the water more than 1,000 kilometers away from Hull Island and sailed in the opposite direction of Hull Island. Carlos quickly took over the artificial satellite. Then the evil thought turned around and headed for Hull Island. However, from the GPS positioning signal of the satellite, the spacecraft was heading in the opposite direction of Hull Island. The personnel of the garrison responsible for monitoring also relaxed their vigilance. Soon, the evil thought sailed to a place more than 10 kilometers away from Hull Island. It was faintly visible that there were many huge water snakes rolling on the sea surface, which looked numbing. Dr. He Yunlin came to the door of the cargo hold and threw out a test tube with the lid opened. A few minutes later, there was no living sea snake in the sea area several hundred meters above the side of the evil thought. This was the snake repellent specially prepared by Dr. He Yunlin. The hatches on both sides of the spacecraft opened, and 5 mechas came out one after another. Xia Xingchen and Elisa's mechas carried a huge device with a diameter of more than 2 meters and a length of about 3.5 meters, and flew to a forest dozens of kilometers away from the abandoned airport. 2 mechas landed, and the device was erected on the ground. The other 3 mechas flew around the coastline, dropping a detection device the size of an ordinary bucket every 10 kilometers, and these devices slowly fell to the ground under the protection of parachutes. After the detection device landed, it immediately disconnected its parachute, and each device extended 4 support arms outward, and then a large drill bit extended from the bottom of the device, drilling more than half a meter deep, and then a cylindrical detection head like a microphone was inserted into the drill hole. More than 10 minutes later, dozens of detectors were released, and Xia Xingchen received feedback. The first step of the snake slaying operation is to cut the grass and look for the snake. Start. Xia Xingchen issued the order for the operation and pressed the start button of the device in the mecha's hand. A giant drill began to work downwards. Soon, a large hole 30 meters deep and 80 centimeters in diameter was drilled out, and then a device the size of a mecha nuclear fuel rod was thrown into it from the device. This is a special nuclear bomb with a small equivalent. Xia Xingchen and Alessa quickly left the device, and then the device drove the mechanical arm again to fill back the sand and soil that had just been drilled. 5 minutes later, the ground here made a loud noise, and the shockwave with a diameter of more than 100 meters tore apart all the creatures in this range. Soon, the seismic waves caused by the nuclear explosion were transmitted to the dozens of detectors, and Colossus' body quickly analyzed the data uploaded by each detector. It turned out that this was a seismic wave underground detector. The seismic wave detection device used by Xia Xingchen and his team used the explosion of a nuclear bomb buried under the ground to produce a shallow source earthquake with a magnitude of nearly 3, and the seismic waves would spread in all directions. The detection devices that were ambushed in advance will capture the scattered seismic waves. According to the speed and frequency of seismic wave propagation, the central optical computer can calculate a large amount of data to obtain the underground situation. This technology was invented by humans more than 1,000 years ago, but it requires a lot of data and experimental support, and it is impossible to give you so many opportunities to deploy so many detectors and let you calmly drill into the ground to deploy nuclear bombs on the battlefield. Another reason is that the amount of calculation is too large. Even if a fleet-level central optical computer is used to calculate and analyze these data, it will take at least a whole day, and the underground situation obtained is very vague, so this technology was abandoned, and there has been no major breakthrough. Fortunately, the Manco people have perfect technology in their hands. Carlos improved what he had, and made this set of seismic wave detection devices. Soon, underground structural maps appeared in everyone's mecha in the cockpit of the evil mind. Carlos began to introduce his discovery to everyone. Guys, below us is a secret underground base covering several square kilometers, more than 300 meters deep, and with a total of 3 floors. However, the bad news is that there are more than 500 metal objects about 5 meters high inside. According to my computer analysis, those are all mechas. Get ready for battle. In the underground base of the Snake tribe, the leader Snake was furious and scolded his men as trash. A large group of people went there, but they were chased back in disgrace. The face of the entire Snake tribe was lost, especially VIP. It was the person in charge of this operation, so it was scolded the worst. VIP felt very aggrieved. Since he was asked to lead the team, why did he send Python? Python was stubborn and arrogant, and would not listen to his command at all. According to VIP's original plan, he would first negotiate at the door. If the negotiation could not be reached, he would suddenly attack and arrest people without giving the other party time to react. This is called courtesy before force. As a result, Python ignored his plan, broke into the door directly, and killed his way in. If it hadn't tried its best to dissuade them, the Chosen One would have clashed with the Second Fleet of the Northern Empire. VIP, continue to arrange people to keep an eye on that old man Hyunlin. Don't let him run away. We must find an opportunity to launch a thunder strike as soon as possible. We don't have much time left. Just as he said this, there was a sudden violent tremor, knocking the people standing in the conference room to the ground. Earthquake. Their base is located more than 30 meters underground. Even if they bombard it with nuclear bombs on the ground, it can't cause such a violent tremor. It seems that there is only one explanation, an earthquake. The equivalent of Xia Xingchen's small nuclear bomb is equivalent to the equivalent of a magnitude 3 earthquake, but the location of the nuclear bomb is no more than 15 meters away from the underground base. This nuclear bomb is too close to the underground base, and a crack has been blown in the alloy concrete outer wall of the entire underground base. The power supply of some facilities in the base was cut off, and various gas pipelines were broken. It was a mess. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.